Hello and welcome to the last word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It was meant to be Tottenham Hotspur versus Leicester City in Spurs' second pre-season game of the season. But in such typical Spurs fashion, that was cancelled. Such as a lot of what it feels like Tottenham summer has been so far, cancelled on many a front. That's before we even touch upon the centre-back search and, of course, Harry Kane's future. But look, we wanted to bring to you a show tonight. There is still a lot to discuss with Tottenham Hotspur right now. So much going on. Many would say it's more off the pitch than on it. But joining me, helping me dissect, break down, summarise, debate anything Tottenham Hotspur, we're joined by three great returning guests to Last Word on Spurs. Back on, beaming a smile because Spurs haven't played. It is, of course, our crazy training instructor, conductor and runner, Lee McQueen, is back. Macca, how are you, mate?
I'm in house, mate. Yeah, all good, mate. It's been ages, actually, to be fair. I think Pat's taken over my co-hosting scenario here. I've seen him more on my screens than I've seen you, Rick. Now, been brilliant content last one on Spurs, as always. And I knew Jamie Vardy would end up scoring. I didn't think he'd get two running in behind, as we was talking about. But to get in behind that shot, that slow defence that we've got, it was obvious. But to go and score 6 up the other end, 7 up the other end, I think, you could argue that the other one was an own goal. But 7-2 against Leicester and Thailand, fantastic result, I thought, lads. Ange Postecoglou, mate, here we come.
So that's why I know you've been on a break, Lee. For that reason alone, you've been on a break for sure with that kind of optimism coming into this show. Joining Lee, back on Last Word on Spurs, full of opinions of always. A lot to do with what's happening with Tottenham right now, as always. We've got wonderful Patrick Tyrant back on Last Word on Spurs. Pat, how you doing, bud?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Frustrated and annoyed, obviously, with what happened today. Yeah, it's crazy because, I wanted to moan and rant on Twitter, but I thought, you know what, let me not. Because Daniel Levy, for everything that he is or he isn't, he doesn't control the weather. And I know people were going nuts on there. Why did we pick Thailand? Monsoon season, yada, yada, yada. But to be fair, a couple of hours before, the pitch looked immaculate. It looked really good. And it's just mad, isn't it? But like you said, typical Tottenham, it could only happen to us. And we'll get into it as well. But I am concerned. We've only played one game so far. One game. Other teams have done 3, 4, even 5. So that is really worrying considering we've got a new manager and lots going on. But yeah, great to be back on with Mitch, Ricky, obviously, and Lee. And yeah, let's get into it, man.
I thought when you said, Pat, that you were saving yourself online. I thought you meant you were saving yourself when you come on here. So
he's going to go for a big rant, a big rant on the Daniel Levy, the weatherman.
That's what I thought he was saying. Yeah, that's what I thought was coming. No, don't put it past him. Look, we've still got a lot of time for the show to go. You're not sure what's going to come out of his mouth.
Only an hour, Rick. Only
an hour. Of course, only an hour. Making up our panel tonight. Back on Last Word on Spurs. It's been a challenge to get this man back on, but we'd like to have finally have him back on Last Word on Spurs. Sports writers, live score very own. Big Spurs fan. We've got the wonderful Mitch Fretton back. Mitch, how are you, bud?
I'm very well. I feel very honoured by that entrance there, Ricky. I was bigging me up very nicely, which was lovely. But yeah, I know I'm really disappointed about earlier today. I even cancelled my gym session that I was supposed to do this morning because it was supposed to be an 11 a.m. kickoff. So, you can only imagine how much that affected me not having to get up and go for a run and lift a load of weights. So it was absolutely gutting. But I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities to do that sort of thing. But I'm really looking forward to being able to chat Spurs with 3 legends on Last Word on Spurs. So it should be fun.
Oh, bless you. Very, very kind. Very, very kind. Look, we've got a field of time here. We've got no game to discuss. But I said it before, we are very, very lucky with Tottenham as a football club that we are blessed with the content as such. Tottenham just keep on giving us so much to talk about. And despite the fact we haven't had a game, it does feel like it's worthwhile to be here to record and discuss just what's happening both inside and around the football club at the moment. But we'll start at the very, very top. Now, of course, Tottenham were meant to have a game today. It would have been their second game of pre-season against Leicester City, which was unfortunately cancelled due to the adverse weather conditions. Now, it does mean Spurs will have to wait until Wednesday to take the pitch again following that cancellation. And I think it was really heavy rainfall in the area of Thailand that put paid to the contest. Initially, it was set for an 11 a.m., 5 p.m. local time kickoff. But remarkably, despite multiple attempts to get the game on, it was officially cancelled 40 minutes after the scheduled kickoff time following a pitch inspection. A statement read from Tottenham: our friendly against Leicester has been cancelled due to a waterlogged pitch and adverse weather conditions. The event organisers, based on a recommendation from the match officials, deemed the pitch at the Ramalanja National Stadium unplayable and unsure following heavy rainfall in Bangkok. Seconds before that communication, we did see a lot of the Spurs players come out and give a lap of honour to the fans, just an appreciation of what's been, I think, overwhelming support in Thailand. One of our own, Jason McGovern's been out there. And we are hoping to get maybe a bit of a report from Jason and a quick audio clip which will hopefully find its way to you at some point if Jason's found his way out of the bars. I'm not sure if Jason found his way in the bars at some points, but I'll let Jason update that with you if he gets back here in one piece, that is, of course. So we did hear a statement from Ange Postecoglou as well, expressing his disappointment of Spurs not being able to play in Thailand. And, of course, Tottenham's final match of their pre-season tour of Australia-Asia comes on Wednesday when, I am going to try and say this in a straight face, they take on the Lion City Sailors in Singapore. Now, I don't want to worry viewers, listeners, Spurs fans out there, but we were shared a overview of what Singapore looks like at the moment in terms of their weather conditions, and they look just as bad, if not worse. So hold your breath if we are going to have a conclusion to this pre-season tour, which, in quite honestly, broad expression, has been absolutely horrendous. It really, really has been. So let's get the guys' review and thoughts on just what they've made of the lack of a game. Lee, I'll start with you. Look, we want this show to be honest, to be refreshing, and also to not be too downbeat. But I just wonder, Lee, is it reactionary or dramatic of me to think this pre-season is set up for a bit of a concerning season, considering we start the Premier League season just under 3 weeks and have only played just the one game? We've got our best player, the next captain, unsure if he wants to be here, and that's also including our actual captain looking to leave the football club. Can you give me any hope and optimism? There's still a lot to look forward to, Lee, at this present moment in time?
Oh, for dramatic, Rick. Dramatisation from you, Ricky Sachs? I don't think so. Of course not, son. We're in the transfer window, Rick. Of course we are. Look, I mean, I think you mentioned there one of our own, not sure whether he wants to stay or go. I told you over a month ago that he wanted to go, but I don't get questioned. I don't get put out on Twitter. It's only the tier 1 journalists that get put out there. But I told you a month ago that this was happening, and no one wanted to believe me. But we'll talk about him when we derail the show at the end. Cheers, Bobby. Nice one, son. Look, I mean, I thought about this today, and there's a lot of people going mad. Obviously, we're gutted that the game didn't go ahead, and anyone that sits here and says, "Oh, it's fine, it's not a problem," of course they're dressing it up. The reality is, loving that, mate. You can call me whatever you need to, Kaden. I've been called loads of stuff. So think of a name for me. I've had a few. Yedinak, I just got one to get the Spurs thing going on. But no, I think, look, at the end of the day, we needed to have a match, and I think Ange said it himself. You don't really get to see how the players are going to take on what they've been coaching until they play a match. And he said that after the West Ham game, and he's got some stuff to work on. Today, he didn't get to work on anything because obviously he didn't play. However, the argument where people are saying, "Oh, why have we chosen to go over there?" Because this is a 5, maybe a 6-year cycle. You mentioned one of our own, Jason, is over there. Chris Cowling as well. Good friend of the show, a friend of all of ours, is over there as well. Like Ali Gold, friend of the show, is over there. The journalists are over there. And, this is a 5, maybe 6-year cycle for some of these thousands and thousands of Thai fans, of Australian fans, of fans over in Southeast Asia that never, ever get to see us play live. So, they've been looking forward to that for over a year. So for me, it's not just about we should just stay local and play, Stevenage. It's about the game's worldwide now. And there's I can't say every single because I don't know the facts, so that would be wrong with me, but most Premier League clubs are playing tours overseas. And, again, you can level it at me. Well, why go to somewhere that's in the monsoon? Well, it's pre-season, right? When else are you going to go there? So in other words, we're never going to go to Thailand then, just because of the weather date. I mean, so that's a difficult one. But we gave it a go, and it didn't quite work out, right? We didn't play the game. And you say it can only happen to Spurs. Well, it also happened to Leicester, didn't it? To be fair to them, because they've also gone over there and they've had the exact same situation. So I'm looking at it from that side of things. Yes, going on tour is huge commercial. Yes, it's money and all that sort of stuff, but it is also about the global fan base that actually makes our club the great club that it is. So I see both sides of that. Just from a footballing perspective, yeah, it's tough because, we're gutted. Like, obviously, as fans, we wanted to see, like everybody, wanted to see him play. I wanted to see a bit of Ange ball today. I generally think he was going to go and take Leicester right over. 32 shots on at goal the other day, 13 on target. I thought he was going to go and have them today, which would be lovely, especially with that lineup. But it didn't happen, and now we are behind. We're probably going to be going into the Barcelona game, as an example, properly undercooked, aren't we? So, we're going to... The whole point of pre-season, I think, was just try and step it up slowly. We got, was it City... What are they called? City Sailor Lions? City Lion Sailors? Singapore Lions. I mean, I don't want to be derogatory, but come on, man. This is Jay talked about checker trade in Europe, like going to these weird places. We're going to be playing some part timers essentially, and that's not great preparation, is it, for Shakhtar Donetsk and then Barcelona? But what do you do? I was thinking this, and this is a genuine question, because I know about pre-match meals and nutrition and all that sort of stuff. But this was a genuine question. Why couldn't Leicester and Tottenham just play? I know maybe for the fans' sake they wouldn't be able to see anything, but why couldn't they have played like behind closed doors tomorrow or something, or later on tonight, or like an indoor game to get some intensity up? I don't know whether that was talked about, or maybe that might happen, but it's definitely not ideal preparations on the football side, that's for sure.
No, look, I agree with a lot what you're saying there. Pat, to come round to you, look, we know people like to play down pre-season, but I think you're going to lose this as well. We've had just the one game, whereas other teams in our vicinity or competitive-wise, they've had 4 by now. Therefore, we are already, I don't want to dramatise things. I know calls me a dramatisation kind of guy. We are still 2 or 3 games behind our rivals in the preparation, of course, for the new season. And I think, again, when you look close to that, I don't want to be too negative, but we are yet to really clear out a lot of dead wood, bar Harry Winks, of course, that has left the football club. And we're still in a situation where Spurs are yet to bring in any prominent senior centre-backs in an area that we know was very much a glaring one to address when the season comes to an end. So, Pat, given the fact of no game today, how do you feel about the current vibe around the club at the moment?
Ooh, what a question. What a question. So before I start, I'd like to say good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending what time you're tuning in, listening to this for the first time or listening back tomorrow morning. But Ricky, yeah, you're right. I mean, it felt already that we was quite behind, because when we played West Ham, they had already played 2 pre-season games. And them coming into that game, that was their third game. It was our first. We kind of held a good account of ourselves in that game to an extent, but obviously, pre-season is pre-season, so results aren't the be-all and end-all. But obviously, you could see they were a bit more ahead of the schedule than us. That was then, and we still haven't played a game since. So concerning. I know, obviously, like Lee said it. I mean, when the game got called off or rained off, I was really annoyed at the time. But then I thought, you know what? Nature happens, and things like this happen. Even in the Premier League, the best league in the world, we've had games called off because of snow and adverse conditions. So it does happen. Really frustrating. I feel for the fans that flew over there, or fans like Lee said that literally only get to see Spurs play maybe once in their lifetime. And of course, the game got cancelled. But from a fan's perspective, it was really frustrating, because I was really looking forward to the game. I was quite surprised with the lineup. We'll probably go into it. I was surprised Hojbjerg was starting, considering all the rumours around him wanting to possibly go, pushing for a move to Atletico Madrid. And I was thinking, is it really wise to start him when possibly he won't be here when the season starts? But obviously, he probably would have got 45 minutes and we would have played someone else. But going back to the actual preseason, it is very concerning, because we've got the game on Wednesday against London City Sailors. With all due respect, it's not really going to be a game to really test us and for us to really gauge and figure out where we are. Then we've got Shakhtar Donetsk on Sunday, the 6th of August at the Tottenham Stadium. And then we've got Barcelona 2 days later away in Spain. And then our season starts. And if you look at it right now, Manchester United have played 3 pre-season games. They've played Leeds, so obviously they played a decent team. They played Lyon, which is a very good Champions League caliber team. And then they played Arsenal last night and they beat them. That's our second game, by the way, in the Premier League. So they're already way ahead of us in terms of their preparation, the level that they're playing at. They've got another game against Wrexham on Wednesday the 26th. So they're way ahead of the schedule. Arsenal have played 3 pre-season Premier League games now. Chelsea have played 2, but they're playing again on Thursday. They're playing Newcastle. Newcastle have played 3 games, about to be 4. And like I said, West Ham have played 4 games now. So when you look at that compared to teams that are at our level, we're way behind schedule. And it's quite concerning. This time last year, we had already played 3 pre-season games. We had played the K-League All-Stars, Sevilla and Rangers. So it's very worrying, considering it's a new manager. We've got at least 3 or 4 new starters that haven't played together. We've got people that we're looking to hopefully bed in, like the Celso and Ndombele, Sergio Reguilon. So we've got a lot of new components. Plus, obviously, we're really struggling with this whole centre-back issue. Conceded 63 goals last season. all fans that are honest with themselves know we need Tapsoba and Micky Van de Ven at the very least. So when you add all of that together, without being a drama queen and without, being one of these guys that wants to rant and rave, it is really concerning. So, sorry, I'm just laughing at this comment.
Yeah, for our listeners on audio there, we've got a comment that comes in there. Apparently, the loser of Barcelona versus Spurs gets Clement Longley. I'll let you, Pat, take that one as you're on your topic.
The Longley, what was it? Game.
Longley Derby. Longley Derby.
Longley Derby. So, yeah, but no, going back to it, it is quite concerning. And, I don't want to be one of these guys, but I am quite worried. I'm not going to lie to you, because our Premier League season starts off quite intense. We got Brentford away, who obviously beat us last year. They're a good team. And then we've got Man United at home, our first home game. And right now, Man United finished strong. They finished third in the league. And if I'm being honest, right, again, pre-season, but they look quite good. Like, their results are good. They're playing on a good brand of football. So, yeah, things need to change, man. Things need to shape up. And I am worried. I'm worried about Ange. I'm worried about the players he hasn't got in yet. I'm worried about the rumours circling our best player, and I'm worried that we've had no real football. Like, basically every player's had 45 minutes of football right now, which is concerning. So yeah, a lot to think about right now.
Absolutely. Mitch, to bring you in, I've got to say, I will reference this for our viewers and listeners. You tweeted earlier today, which I thought, again, was spot on. 19 days until the Premier League season starts. It'll be 18, of course, for our listeners on audio. And Spurs have played just the one pre-season fixture. Couple that with a doubt around Harry Kane's future. And you can't help but think we are destined for a slow start. We all, of course, want to be wrong. But I suppose the question I want to ask you, Mitch, again, similar to the same kind of lines, and to not try and be too negative, but just being brutally honest, it does feel like this pre-season is in a little bit of a state of chaos. We're only one game in. We are late July. We've got our star players' future being dominated in the media. We are, of course, yet to sign that elusive centre-back in a team that shipped 63 goals last season. And Scott Munn, who, of course, is our new CFO start date, has also had to be pushed back. So, again, to not be too dramatical, there is a lot, Mitch, happening behind the scenes that, quite frankly, could have been done better. What's your take on it overall for you, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few issues around the whole sort of situation for me, because, you work quite hard to get Ange through the door at a relatively early stage towards the end of last season. And there's an obvious reason for that. You fire for all the candidates, you had all the issues around who was going to be the new manager. The dust sort of settles on Postecoglou, you bring him in. And it just seems like every important aspect of his planning for the new season is just being disrupted. I mean, in terms of the whole pre-season thing, at the end of the day, you can do all the team bonding you want. You can get to know the players on a personal level, spend however many days you'd like wanting to do that. But the way that he is going to be able to make an impact and make a difference to Spurs is by watching them against opposition. You can play in-house friendlies and you can play against the under-21s and stuff like that, but you need to be seeing them in a competitive scenario against the teams that we have essentially got lined up for pre-season. The West Ham will have been a really good starting point for him, and Leicester would have perhaps been even better for him as well, because it's another level of opposition that is they're still probably quite similar to a lot of Premier League opposition with the quality of players that they have in their squad. But with that being cancelled, and then you consider the game we've got coming up midweek, which again is probably just going to be. It's going to be good for fitness and getting minutes in the players' legs. But in terms of looking at it from a tactical perspective and comparing that level of opposition against teams that we're going to be playing week in, week out in the Prem, I'm not too sure how much of a sort of impact that's going to make in that sense. And then, you look at some of the other issues. Every single person who follows Spurs and supports Spurs will have told you that the biggest issue in the squad is the defence, and it has been for a long time now. So, and I'm not going to slate the James Maddison signing, because I absolutely love the bloke and I've been wanting him at the club for a long time because I think he's brilliant. But I just feel like the priority needed to be that defence, and all of a sudden, like you read out from my tweet earlier, we're 19 days away from the season kicking off. That's just no time at all. And we've still got the same defence that we had last season that shipped 60 plus goals, which is pretty catalytic, considering we've now got a manager in who wants to play attacking football, and we're potentially going to be even more vulnerable at the back. So, like Pat was referring to earlier, we do need to get at least two quality centre-backs through the door. One of those, and this is just my opinion, and I'm sort of hoping more than anything. Okay, so Lee's got 3 up. Pat's got 4 fingers up.
He's gone double tens there a second ago.
But yeah, we need that quality through the door, and in my opinion, we need one of those done within the next week. It has to be done. You have to give at least one of those fellas time to get some pre-season in, because it's a different system that we want to play at the back. You want to be playing the high lines. You want to be playing really progressive up the pitch, and with the defenders that we've got at the moment, it's just not really possible. And then when you look at the Harry Kane situation as well, I think a lot of fans have sort of echoed what I think on social media as well, and it's just the whole saga's dragging on and it's getting a bit boring now. And I feel like us as fans, we deserve at this point a bit of clarification from the club or from the player about the situation, what's happening. Look, if Daniel Levy is willing to sell Harry Kane for £100 million this summer, then I feel like that's something that should be made public knowledge. And I feel like if he's not willing to sell him this summer, they need to come out with a statement and say that that's not the case, or a few words from Harry himself would be nice, just to see where his head's at. I appreciate that it's probably a bit more difficult from the player's side of things, and he doesn't want to upset people in the way that he did a few years ago with the whole City saga. But there's just a lot of ongoing issues in so many different areas at Spurs at the moment. And with less than 3 weeks to go until the season's starting, I feel like a lot still needs to be done in such a short amount of time. And when you think at the reality of everything being resolved by the time we kick off again against Brentford in 19 days, it's a bit worrying for me personally, because Ange has had these notoriously slow starts at the teams he's joined, and everything points towards that with Spurs as well, just because of the radical change in playing style that we're going to be seeing, going from that defensive to attacking style, trying to drill into players to change the way that they have played on the pitch under Conte, under Jose Mourinho, under Nuno. It's going to be a shock for him, and it's going to take time to adapt. So yeah, a lot needs doing, and I just hope that we can get it done, and the lack of pre-season is just another one of those things that's not very helpful.
Can I just to add to that? I mean, you speak a lot of sense, Mitch, as always, as do you, Pat. And Rick, you're just talking. No, I'm joking. You're talking nonsense, Rick. You are.
What expect less from you? Go on, mate.
Yeah, no. But I was just going to say, like, look, there's a lot of comments in there that we're worried, and there's a lot of thinking that, Pat and Mitch, you said, we're a little bit concerned. And like I said at the top of the show, right, on the footballing side, it's not ideal. But actually, would we be saying the same things if we'd have played today? Probably yes. Like the centre-back situation still isn't anything to do with the friendly from today, is it? Do you know what I mean? The Kane situation is nothing to do with the friendly situation. The chief football officer not being able to start his job, that's nothing to do with it. So when we talk about dramatisation, if we're looking at the friendly today not happening, has that impacted on our pre-season? 100% yes, and it's not ideal. But all them other things are going to happen anyway, right? Because they were happening. So I think we need to be a bit of a balance. I think the other key thing as well is that, and it's not about comparing from last year to next year and this year after, but when you're trying to progress and when you've got a new manager coming to the football club with a new philosophy, and Mitch, you just touched upon it there, typically start slower because of them things. You want a really good pre-season under your belt, yes you do, but actually is that one game going to make us all of a sudden be 10 points behind where we want to be? And again, it's very difficult to quantify that, because the answer is probably going to be no. No one actually knows. Last year, when everyone was puking on the pitch, we had our business done early. We had signing after signing after signing coming through the door, our 3-4 day. Well, how did that work out? Because it was 63 goals that we let in, and we finished 8th. So I suppose the point I'm making is, look, the Premier League, it won't be ideal if we don't have good preparation. I'm not condoning the fact. I'm not arguing with you saying preparation doesn't matter. Of course it does. 100% it matters. But it won't be a slow start that won't get us in the top 4 or top 5. Because, look at Villa. Villa in the bottom 4 or whatever, and they sacked their manager. Chelsea had 4 different managers. Villa still got European football because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I don't think you can worry if you want, that's your prerogative, but I don't think we as fans should be worried about things that may or may not happen in 8 months' time or 6 months' time or 7 months' time. I think what we need to be concerned about, worried about, the friendly today, if that's what we're talking about, it is a bit of a shit show. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the fans. It's a nightmare for the travelling fans. It's a nightmare for everybody who paid their money on Spurs play or whatever it might be. And it's clearly a nightmare for the preparation but we have got some opportunity to be able to reclaim that preparation back. I mean, going to Barcelona, Shakhtar Donetsk, some really hard friendlies. You mentioned, Pat, earlier that a couple of teams have played Lyon and, Champions League. We are playing them sorts of teams as well, and that is going to come. So I just don't think that we need to be too worried at the moment about kind of, this is going to give us a bad start, because we don't know that. But last year, the preparation gave us a brilliant start. It was our best ever start to Premier League. Fantastic. But then look what happened. So, I think it's just a little bit of, look, everybody knows my views now. And if you haven't been watching the channel over the last kind of 6 months, but, my views on a lack of plan and a lack of direction. And I still think that's the case. Ange Postecoglou coming into the football club hasn't changed anything. We still haven't had any communication, Mitch, as you just rightly pointed out, from the football club at all about a Harry Kane situation or about our chief football officer or wherever it is. I put a tweet about people saying, "Why do you want to see Scott Munn?" It's not necessarily I want to see him. I want to hear from him. He's the leader of the football inside. I do want to hear from him, whether or not he's a football administrator or he's the leader of our football inside of the club. So I want to hear what our plan is and where our goals is. So when we're talking about lack of planning, when we're talking about a lack of preparation, it is really important. So believe you me, I totally get it. I run multiple businesses. I have done as well. I've been in boardrooms. Like, I get it. But equally, we're worrying about something that we can't control, which is ultimately the weather and making us have a bit of a doom and gloom, because let's be disappointed, but let's move on and see what else that we can do. Does that make sense, lads? Viewers and listeners.
Can I say one other thing, Lee, just to get you to cover this off, just from a business perspective? Of course, that there'll be many overseas fans that watched last one on Spurs that will be really disappointed that obviously are based in Thailand. We know we've got a massive support over there for the show. And obviously those fans would have been so excited to see Ange Ball, as you obviously referenced it, and to actually see the players up close and personal. And it would have been the first time that Spurs would have been actually featuring in Thailand. So I think it's important to just cover that off, Lee, if you don't mind, on that point that, many ask, why do Spurs go on these illustrious tours? Why do clubs do this, if there's a fact during monsoon season? But this is really the one and only opportunity of a year in which clubs do get the opportunity to go abroad to see fans. So do you just want to expand on that point a little bit?
Of course, there's a lot of people in the comments asking, saying, Kim, why go there in monsoon? Well, when else can you go there? Because pre-season is not, you can't move pre-season, viewers and listeners. Come on, let's have it right. You can't move pre-season is played now. So if monsoon season is always now, every year in Thailand, and pre-season is always now, you're basically saying, tough to all the Thailand fans, you're never going to see Tottenham play live because we're never coming on tour. And you just have to look at it from that side of things. Maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't, I'm bothered about the Thai fans. But the club is, and it's not just about us as the fans in the UK. It's a worldwide game, and we are a worldwide fantastic football club. And sometimes our chief sponsor, our shirt sponsor, is from the Asia Pac region. Like we have a massive following in the Asia Pac region. And that is one of the key reasons. It's not just about, Jason lived in Thailand for 12 years, one of our own. It's not just about Jason going back over to there and the money that and the time, whatever, and his disappointment. It's also the fact that there's official Thailand supporters group over there. There's thousands of Thai supporters that wanted to watch their team play live, the only chance they're going to get. You have to take that into consideration as well. Of course, it's a commercial. There's a commercial piece there, and I get that. It doesn't fit right when you're having to pay on Spurs Play, you're having to pay to go out there, you're having to pay tickets, you've got the members right, the membership rises, and all the things that Pat made some brilliant points on a couple of shows ago. But there is a balance here as well, and unfortunately, sometimes it is a political piece. Do you see where I'm coming from? So I think it's not just about one thing. You've got to consider lots of other things. And if we don't go to pre-season in Thailand, in this date, then they don't ever see us play live, or we have to change the pre-season. We know that them two can't happen. So one of our mottos, and we have a go at the club, and I do as well. A lot of us have a go at the club around to dare is to do on the footballing side. Well, we dared to go out there and give it a go, and we got done by the weather. I mean, come on. It's the same with Leicester. It's one of them things, and hopefully we'll be able to claw that time back over a period of time. But at least we gave it a go.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, of course, of the pre-season, we know, of course, to add to Postecoglou's planning woes, Spurs won't, of course, be facing AS Roma. That game replaced by Lion City Sailors. They're currently third in the Singapore Premier League, and they've stepped in at very, very late notice. They're at least midway through a season, so they should be match sharp, but are not expected to be at the level really to test Tottenham. And just for context on when I say that, a second-string Dortmund side without all of their World Cup players beat Lion City 7-2 in a friendly in Singapore in November.
Rick.
So I'm just giving you some context.
That means
some context.
If they go and score against us now, we're going to be absolutely battered.
Well,
imagine we draw 2-2.
Well, I do think that it's important to give some context to that. Because of course it is. Yeah, I think many people will be intrigued to know, of course, if we have a kit and buy cricket score, again, we'll be obviously very, very excited and seeing the brand of football, but hopefully be, very much looking forward to what's to come. But Postecoglou has said, look, in the last 12 to 13 days I've been at the club, the fog is lifting. I can see more of what needs to be done. The West Ham game revealed some things that you can't see unless you play that first game. That's the main thing for me. I'm really alert at the moment about everything. So I think that's what you want to hear from the manager. And again, I think he spoke ever so well. Before we do go for our first break, I do just want to cover what would have been Ange Postecoglou's second team that he would have fielded for Tottenham Hotspur as Spurs' head coach. Now, Harry Kane, once again, would have captained the side, with Min-sol returning alongside him and Dejan Kulusevski as well up top. We had Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg coming to the centre of the midfield alongside Yves Bissouma and James Maddison. And defensive-wise, we had Christian Romero, Ben Davis pairing up in the centre of defence with Pedro Porro, Destiny Ajoji, the fullbacks, ahead of goalkeeper Guillermo Vicario. Sort of get your thoughts on it if I can, Pat, and then when it comes to Mitch. Again, it's a non-event, the game didn't happen, but from a team perspective, what did you make of that 11?
Yeah, no, it looked good. I mean, just going back to Mitch and Lee have made some really good points. And I think one of the points about, the team that we're playing next. So basically just finishing off on the pre-season, obviously the game we're playing next, Lion City Sailors, Singapore. It's not great, but also at the same time, when you look at Arsenal played FC Nuremberg, they drew 1-1, just to put some context into it. Chelsea have played Wrexham. They beat them 5-0, but again, Wrexham aren't a great team. Newcastle have played Gateshead FC, and they also, they beat Gateshead FC 3-2, but just yesterday they lost 2-0 to Carlisle United. So no one's really talking about that. So just so Spurs fans aren't really, I'm really frustrated and aggrieved we didn't get to see our team play today. But just to put into context, the team that we're playing next, yes, they may not be at the level that we would like to see Spurs play, but a lot of teams in pre-season are playing teams of that caliber. And then like Lee said, we do ramp it up, Shakhtar Donetsk, and then obviously we've got Barcelona. So frustrating. All is not lost, but when you add that to everything that's going on, we've lost the game. We were already behind. The Kane situation, the centre backs, the lack of movement in terms of the deadwood, it does feel very negative. It does feel like there's a black cloud hanging over us. And we had a lot of jubilation and joy brought with us when we played West Ham. Even though we lost, no one really cared about the result. It was the style of football that we saw, playing four at the back, bossing possession, the way we moved the ball around, all of that for the first game was fantastic. So I was just excited to see that today against better opposition and really with the front three that we all want to see, Son, Kane and Kulu. But then obviously Bissouma and Maddison, I was really excited, man. That's a top front five, or front three plus the two behind. So then for that to get taken away, I think that's why so many people are frustrated and aggrieved. But then Lee made a good point about we can't move pre-season, and unless we do what the NBA do, is in, when I say we, the Premier League, where they start having fixtures and schedules, games like in the middle of the season where they, like the NBA will come to London or they'll go to Germany, and the NFL do that. Let's be honest, I don't think us as football fans, we want to see that. So the pre-season is when you will get these games, in different countries. So it is frustrating. The monsoon washed us out, and again, it killed not just only us but Leicester. But it's just one of those things. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet. So yeah, frustrating. But I just wanted to put that in there to just add a bit of context to the fact that yes, we have lost the game, and yes, the opposition isn't great on Wednesday, Wednesday when it is. But let's be fair, every team is playing teams of that caliber or that ilk. It's not just us. So yeah, but going back to the game, if you put the lineup again up, Ricky, thanks. So yeah, like I said, Decky, Kane and Son, that's the front three that we all want to see. So I was really excited to see that. Maddison sitting in behind. You would expect Basuma to be the number 8 and Hojbjerg just to sit as the DM/6. That really excited me. To be fair, when I saw Hojbjerg's name, I was a bit like, I'd rather see someone else there, considering there's talk that he wants to leave. I mean, I don't mind Hojbjerg. I don't dislike him like a lot of fans do, and I don't love him either. I'm kind of like 50-50 with him. When he's good, he's good. But I think, unfortunately for him, I think he kind of just ran out of juice. He played in a midfield 2 for pretty much the whole season, and every game that we played, essentially we played against 3. So he just got, ran ragged, and it's not his fault, but also at the same time, I feel he is a bit limited in his style of football, and maybe it doesn't suit Ange Postecoglou. The fact that he said he wants to leave, and we're actually also, not that worried if he goes or not, that kind of tells its own story. But I also wanted to talk about the fact that Udogie and Porro were playing together as fullbacks. I was really excited to see that. 2 very good quality attacking players going forward, both with great deliveries, both with good pace, want to dribble, want to create. I was really excited to see how that would look. But also at the same time, defensively as well, when you're only playing with a back 4 and 2 of those are very attacking minded players, how would that look against somebody like maybe a Vardy or someone with pace that could obviously just exploit that high line? So there was a lot of intriguing factors there. Unfortunately, it's really frustrating we didn't get to see it play, because I was really looking forward to it. And then again, Lo Celso had a blinder in the last 45 minutes the other day. I wanted to see how he fared when he came on, or what would happen there. Wanted to see Richarlison essentially ease himself into the game, not snatch at chances and just relax a bit. And again, Mano Solomon looked great. So did Sarr. So there was a lot. And even, to be fair, Perisic as well. A lot of people, again, 50-50 with him. But let's have it right. When he came on and playing as a winger, he looked really good. Created a lot of good chances. And when he doesn't have to essentially worry about the defensive work, he is a very good player. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to see today, which I didn't. So that's probably why I'm a bit aggrieved. And I thought, let me stay off Twitter, because I don't want to just be one of these guys just negative and bashing the club, when essentially it's not their fault. It's not the club's fault. It's not Daniel Levy's fault. It's just one of those things. It does happen. Yep.
Mitch, if I can bring you in, just to be clear, we had only 11 players named on that bench, meaning a number of miss out due to fitness. One of those includes Tung and Dombele, we understand, continues to recover from a knock that ruled him out of our pre-season opener against West Ham, but was back in training on Saturday after his ankle knock. Jed Spence, Joe Rodon also continued to recover from their injuries, while youngster Alfie Devine was not selected for the game. Mitch, what did you make of that team? We had Vicario, Porro, Romero, Davis, Udogie, Hojbjerg, Basuma, Maddison, Kulusevski, Kane and Son, and Whiteman, Emerson, Dyer, Tanganga, Reguilon, Skip, Lo Celso, Sarr, Solomon, Perisic and Richarlison on the bench. What did you make of it, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the positive, and the positive is I actually quite like the look of that lineup. I think the obvious 2 in there that I think we may see change before the start of the season will be Ben Davies and Hojbjerg. I mean, based on a lot of notifications going off on my phone right now, it's looking like some news from Gary Jacob this evening that Hojbjerg's agreed personal terms with Atletico Madrid. So we might see that one nearing its conclusion in the next couple of days. So that, going back to what Pat was saying about, I'm quite surprised to see that he was in that sort of first starting 11 for the first half today. I would have personally probably preferred to have seen Sarr in that position instead of him, because he really impressed me against West Ham in that second half. But I quite like the sort of dynamic of that team. Again, the fullbacks are probably the most interesting point of that team. The front three, pretty self-explanatory. The Basuma and Maddison in midfield, I think they're going to form quite a nice partnership over the course of a season, which will be lovely. And Vicario obviously looks like he's got that number one spot ahead of the campaign as well. But yeah, Pedro Porro and Udogie, I'm really, really interested to see how they work as a dynamic. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the fullbacks being inverted during the attacking phases of Postecoglou's play, which is, I think, will really suit them quite well and their attacking sort of mentality. I think both Porro and Udogie, obviously, it's weird to say, I guess, but I guess it's just a sort of staple of a modern fullback these days, is they're probably a bit better travelling and going forward with the ball than they are at perhaps, one-on-one defending or being part of that back line. So I think for me, that's a really interesting dynamic. I mean, looking at that bench, obviously you mentioned the names. Sorry, you can change it again in a second. But yeah, looking at the names that you mentioned, obviously Joe Rodon, Jed Spence, Ndombele missing, Sessegnon obviously with that injury as well. But I mean, look at how attacking that bench is as well. You've got the Celso, Sarr, Perisic, Solomon, Richarlison all on there. I feel like that calibre of player compared to the defensive options on that bench, there's a significant difference in quality. Royal, Reguilon, Dyer, Tanganga and Skip. Compared to those attacking players that I just mentioned before, is again going back to highlighting the issues we've got with our defensive players at the club. So for me, looking back at that, whether that will be the sort of squad that is named in the first weekend against Brentford, I'm obviously still not quite sure, and I'm sure Ange isn't completely made up his mind yet on that either. But I hope that the lineup that we see there is the lineup we see on Wednesday as well. I'm hoping that he doesn't change it for the game on Wednesday, and that he just sticks to the plan that he was going for the game against Leicester, because it'll be really interesting. And I know people might disagree with me, but I feel like that lineup there is going to be very, very close to what we're going to see against Brentford in the opening weekend. As I said, bar hopefully Ben Davies comes out for either Micky Van de Ven or Tapsoba, obviously providing that we actually get either one of those into the club and over the line. And then, yeah, with the Hojbjerg thing, either Sarr maybe in that role. I think it would be difficult to perhaps facilitate a Basuma, Maddison, Lo Celso midfield if you're looking at maybe trying to protect that back four a little bit. And maybe Ndombele as well. We're not really sure on the clarity of that situation there. Is he going to stay and be a part of the squad for the season? And I think that goes back to the point I think that Pat was making earlier. Again, we've still got so many players in the club who have unresolved futures. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, with just 19 days left until the season starting, and we've got a hugely inflated squad. And I'm still thinking that we need to get rid of at least 5 or 6 of those players.
I think you're being kind, Mitch. I would say 8 or 9.
That's what I mean. At least
because of no Europe, you just feel. We don't. Yeah,
generally,
it's a fire sale. It's a fire sale.
I think if we had it our way, we'd get rid of a dozen of them. But with what we have and the way things are going, and there's an obvious apparent problem when it comes to offloading our players. I mean, you look at the way that Chelsea are going about getting rid of their deadwood, Arsenal are doing it really well as well. Man United getting rid of a few players to raise funds. We're really struggling in that area. And I just don't know if I back Daniel Levy enough to just bite the bullet and take significantly reduced fees for the players. It looks like Davinson Sanchez might be on the way out. Fine. If we get 10 million quid for him, then brilliant. That's obviously a fraction of what we paid for him, but it's probably about his market worth at the moment. But then, players like Sergio Reguilon, how much do you get for him? Do you sell him now because of Sessegnon's injury? That sort of thing. And then Ndombele, is he staying? Is he going to go out on loan? What are we going to do with Oliver Skip if Sarr's sort of maybe overtaking him for that backup role in central midfield? Do we bring in a replacement for Hojbjerg, because I've seen a lot of people debating that issue online as well. Do we give that chance to Sarr, or do we go out and spend that Hojbjerg money on someone like Conor Gallagher or another player that Ange is a fan of? So, I mean, the lineup I like the look of. I'm excited to see how it plays. But I think looking at that graphic and that squad as a whole, there's still a lot, again, of issues. And I'm not trying to be overly negative about it. I appreciate I might sound it a little bit, but I think we've got to be realistic. And if we want to get those targets that the chairman obviously wants, and ultimately that goal is getting back into the Champions League, there's still a lot of serious work to be done with that squad.
We talk about targets. I think that's where we are going to turn to next. We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. And despite the fact there has been no game, we've got over 1,300 of you watching us live. So again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. When we're not even here reviewing a game, we're reviewing where we are with Tottenham Hotspur currently in the summer. Love Music's asked the question, when will a mainstream media journalist actually ask a hard question? Well, I think that depends on what you deem to be a hard question. I mean, I've got to say, the way that Postecoglou has handled the presser so far, I've been really, really impressed by the way he's dealt with the Harry Kane situation, which, just for reference, we are going to come on to Harry Kane, but it'll be towards the end of this show, as we want to keep making that point. We don't want to derail the whole conversation, in which it seems to do for everybody at the moment, Harry Kane's future. But we are going to discuss where Spurs are in terms of the transfer window. You can argue this might actually derail the show. And this man's got to try and steer it back on. So, Lee, I'll come to you, and then we will go to Pat. Ange Postecoglou has confirmed that the club are working on signing a new centre-back. He said, yes, we'll do something there. It's not a secret. We've been working on it for a while, and we'll definitely try and get it done as quickly as possible. Now, again, just to kind of reiterate the point, Spurs conceded 63 Premier League goals last season. And at the moment, we are still with those present defenders in place. We know Spurs have got a very, very keen interest in Micky Van de Ven and Edmond Tapsoba, along with also Blackburn youngster Ashley Phillips. We'll come on to shortly about that situation. But Lee, interestingly, before I bring you in on this, Postecoglou said sustained success only happens when the whole organisation is working sort of on the same hymn sheet in terms of what we're going to do. So far, I've had all the support I've needed in terms of the staff I've brought in, the transfers we've made, and it's just got to continue like this. Now, just for context, that was said last week by Ange Postecoglou, and at the same point, he did reiterate the point Spurs do want to sign at least one centre-back. Lee, give me your thoughts, and you're, I say, quite level-headed, you're fairly rational. Where are you at the moment on the fact Spurs are working on centre-backs, but none currently in as we record this show?
It's a joke, Rick. An absolute joke. I'm sick of this. It's an absolute nightmare. I need centre-backs. No, look, I mean, I am frustrated as everybody else. It is absolutely glaringly obvious that we need reinforcements. Not only reinforcements in that back line. I mean, I think, again, I don't want to sound like a spoiled little child here at Christmas not getting the right gifts, but if we only get one CB in before the start of the season, I'm going to be highly disappointed. So we need at least two main centre-backs, and we need another one as well, in my opinion, like even if it's a backup. And for me, look, it's not Clement Longley. Like, Clement Longley isn't the man, you know. Is it Ashley Phillips? Did you just say from Blackburn? He is an opportunity. If you listen and watch Ali Gold's videos, he will always talk about the way Spurs approach the transfer window, especially under Paratici as well. And we know that he's still been pulling the strings behind the scenes as well, but in that consultancy world, as we spoke about before. Ashley Phillips is an opportunity, although opportunity at 3 million, maybe not so much an opportunity at 9.5 million that Last Word on Spurs were reporting earlier. So that might be something that goes away. But again, Ashley Phillips, he's not the answer either. The answer is a top quality centre back that wants to come and play for Tottenham and fits into the Ange Postecoglou system. And I think it's abundantly clear to me anyway, from an outsider looking in, that we've been tracking VDV. And also Tapsoba for a while. They are the ones that kind of been identified using data, and also Ange Postecoglou and what we're looking to do. That the reality of the situation is that they are our top targets. So we need to go and get them. And it comes back to the pre-season point, right? We're still playing pre-season with Davis, Dyer, Reggie, Ndombele, Lo Celso, Jaffet, Joe Rodon. I mean, none of these players, in my opinion, should even be at the club, let alone doing a pre-season. So when we're having a panic about our pre-seasons, we've lost the Leicester game today, from the calendar. Well, VDV and Tapsoba haven't even played for us yet. They ain't even signed for us, and they're the ones that we really need to be concentrating on. So the centre-back issue is the biggest issue, in my opinion, my humble opinion. That's why we have you. That's why you have me on, Eric. That is the biggest problem that we've got right now, and this is what we need to solve. And I think that there may be complications. There's so much stuff going out on Twitter. There's so much stuff going out on different social media channels. So much stuff that you hear, different reports. The reality of the situation is Tottenham Hotspur need in my opinion, two centre-backs, probably three, and they need to ship out some people as well. And they can't ship people out while they're on tour. I thought, leaving Hugo Lloris, by the way, our club captain, as it stands at the moment, at home to get another move, and yet taking Davis, Dyer, Reggie, and Ndombele, Jeffrey Tanganga, Joe Roden, Lascelles, so the list goes on, taking all them players, what does that suggest? Is that suggesting that Ange has given them a clean slate, which he has said that he would do, and he will look at them? And, if he decides that Reguilon is going to be his starting left-back because he can get a tune out of him and he becomes brilliant, I'm cool with that. If he wants to go and sign Cameron Carter-Vickers back because he was brilliant at Celtic, I'm also cool with that, but it needs to be now. They need to be coming into the football club now. We can't be doing deadline day signings just to get one through the door. And I did make a point. Twitter went mad at me the other day when I had a rant and rave about the centre backs. The reality of the situation is that we've been here before, over and over and over and over and over again. I say it one more time, over again. So loads of people when they say, call out the board. This is calling out the board, right? We've been here so many times under this ownership of Daniel Levy and the Nink, whereby a manager wants a centre back and he doesn't get the centre back that he wants. Now, I got called out on Twitter for saying, maybe the player didn't want to come. But when you're running a phenomenal, rich ninth club in the world, phenomenal stadium, phenomenal training fits, all the stuff that's going for it, it's the job of the custodian, it's the job of the football club to bring them players there. We've got Maddison, and look at him. Look how well he talks. Who would be disgusted if he was vice captain or even captain, dare I say, if Kane does move on? The bloke's been absolutely a breath of fresh air for us. And we got him. And there would be other clubs that were going to get him as well. So it's up to us to bring these players in. We need to talk to them. We need to get them in. We need to sell it to them, whatever you want to do. Sell them the dream. I don't know what you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is, we need to get them highly motivated. And Ange Postecoglou does that. Right, you hearing me, viewers and listeners, right? For me, Ange Postecoglou does that. So you need to get them sitting down. Matters came because of Ange Postecoglou. People like Vicario. It was very interesting. I'm not no body language expert. I know that a lot of people on Twitter are body language experts now, based on Ndombele getting off the bus. But when you look at body language, you look at and you look at verbal language as well. There was a lot of I when Ange had his. Not this last press conference before, he was talking about when I signed James Maddison, when I signed Vicario. That's quite telling. Like, he didn't say when we or when the club, he said I wanted this player and I'm getting that player in. Does that make sense? I don't know if any of you picked that up. It's quite telling. So look, the centre-back situation is driving me potty. I would really love to wake up tomorrow with breaking news and we've signed VDV and Tapsoba, and I would be a very happy bunny from that perspective. But it does look like, Rick, doesn't it? I mean, you tell me you're the man. I'm not the transfer man, right? You guys are more transfers than I am, but it does look like something's not quite right, doesn't it?
Well, I just think it's because of the fact that, when you can see coming over to you, Pat, the element of the goals you have done 63, you would assume, along with the goalkeeper, of course, that would have been the main area to address in the summer. And the fact Spurs haven't done that yet, and I must use the word yet because it could change at any time. I think that's why there is a level of concern and frustration out there because as we sit here now, we're 18 days before the start of the Premier League season and the Warriors were going in with the exact same centre-backs that we ended it with. So, I mean, Pat, look, Postecoglou also said we're working with players that we've got at the moment. I'm really happy with the way they're working hard, but obviously we've still got time in the transfer window. We're still looking to do some business, but yeah, I think that's definitely our intention in relation to centre-backs. We've been working it for a while, and we'll definitely try and get it done as quickly as possible. Some of it I've identified from early on. I don't think it's any secret about the areas that we need to strengthen. Pat, where are we on this centre-back search, and how confident are you the club will look to get this sorted in the next week or so, to be the most kindest way of putting it?
You know what? To begin with, I was really confident. All the news and all the, the words coming out, the buzzwords, the things, the updates coming out on Twitter and that we were hearing, very positive. We were very close to Tapsoba. Personal terms agreed straight away. They're saying with Micky Van de Ven, these are guys that we had scouted, watched, used data, used all these different things to identify them. Two good centre-backs that we all can agree would instantly improve our back line. Young, hungry, want to be here, yada, yada, yada. But this was two weeks ago. All the updates from all the tier ones was that, we're very close, personal terms agreed, looks like we're almost there or thereabouts. And then literally every day since then, it's been the same update. And they've just regurgitated the news and slightly changed one or two lines. And obviously, as it drags and drags and drags, it just becomes a bit concerning because obviously it's common knowledge who we're after. We're not the only good team that needs centre-backs. And my fear is if we just wait and wait and wait, I don't know why it's taken so long, to be honest, considering we need these guys. They should have been here yesterday. The pre-season tour is happening right now. They need to come in, bed in, ideally play, understand the manager. And then you've got obviously other teams that can circle and also have a good pool and can bring them in. It does worry me. I mean, when you look at a team like Aston Villa, Lee made a good point about selling them the project, selling them the dream, bringing them in. With all due respect, Aston Villa have now signed Pau Torres. They've now signed, the guy, Diaby and Yuri Tillemans. Those are three good players that instantly improved the Aston Villa starting 11. And if they can do that, why can't we get in our targets? And I'm not saying for us to go out and get Mbappe or go out and get, this world beater, but the guys that we're looking at definitely improve our team. Ideally, we'll be here for 3 or 4 years. They have a high ceiling. They're players that, we know we can't go out and get, the best centre-back in the world right now. We're really fighting that 80 to 100 pound, £1 million market. But the guys that we're looking at are good players, will improve and will instantly improve the team. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I just don't understand why it's just taking so long. And people can tell me that, it does take long and it does, but other teams are doing deals and we've done deals as well. So what's happening with these two centre-backs? And then, you see updates. Eric Dyer's not looking to leave. He's looking to fight for a place. Sorry, if the club don't want you here and really, we as the club should be like, nah, sorry, you've had your time, move on. Ben Davis, Eric Dyer, Tanganga, I'm on the fence about. I don't know. Sometimes I think he should go. Other times I'm like, you know what? He's 24. He still can get better. And I don't know. That one for me,
Pat, can I just interact? Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to interact on that point because I think that's where, and I do it all the time as well, right? So I'm not saying you lot and me. It's all of us, right? But maybe that's where we've got to give some credit to Ange. He's gone, do you know what? Let me just have a look. We don't want to hear that. Like none of us viewers or listeners want to hear that he's having another look at Eric Dyer and we know the problems, right? But, the Tangangas, etc., with the Rodens, whatever. But it's his prerogative as manager to come in and go, do you know what? My philosophy is everyone's got a clean slate. I'm going to have a look at it. And if that's my philosophy, I'm not going to just say it and then not follow through on it because that would be, that would be untrustworthy and disrespectful and all that sort of stuff. So maybe we've got to give him even more credit. I know we're giving Ange quite a lot of credit anyway. Either one have really enjoyed him so far, but maybe he does need to have that look just so he knows. Rick, you quoted his press conference or a clip of his press conference earlier. Didn't you mention that he was like, the fog is lifting and I can now start to see. Yeah. Maybe he was looking at that going, the fog is lifting. I've given Sanchez a chance and I can now see that he ain't good enough to play for my football club. Do you see what I'm coming from? So
that makes sense.
It doesn't help us. It doesn't help us as fans because we're like, come on, man. We've seen this for 4 or 5 years. But to be fair, Ange hasn't. And I know it's not what we all want to hear, but maybe that's why he did take them on tour. But don't sign VDV just yet. Let me see what I can do with Tanganga. Let me just have a look. Yeah. And then, it's all set up. And then maybe now he's coming back going, play 2 friendlies, which is now only 1, so that could be the problem. But we play 2 friendlies. Don't fancy Sanchez. You can let him go for £8 million. Go and sign with VDV. I mean, that's the hope. And you know what hope always does.
And it makes sense as well, because when you look at Lo Celso, for example, he's a guy that most 80%, 90% probably wanted out. played a blinding 45 minutes, and now people are slowly warming to him. So again, if Ange doesn't take that look and play Lo Celso, then we wouldn't feel how we feel. So yeah, could be true.
With Lo Celso again, just to try and keep the chat fluid, right? Lo Celso is a perfect example of what we're talking. It's a brilliant example, Pat, because I would sell Lo Celso tomorrow. Like I would sell him.
Would
tomorrow.
you? Even now, right now, he looks like
yes, but in this
fit in that number 8.
And this is the point. This is the point. He's played 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and all of a sudden, us fans are going, "Oh, he's perfect." But we've forgotten before how dross that guy has been. When he doesn't turn up, he never's turned up for us. He's not really wanting to be there. The attitude, the Argentinian thing.
To play devil's advocate, he was played in the wrong positions. Apart from under Conte for a bit and he was really good. When you watch him at Sevilla and all the other teams playing in this position, Betis, for example, he looked good. So
this debate right here is exactly the point I'm making. Just see why he has to have a look at other players. Because if he'd have just written off Lo Celso like I just did, we couldn't be having that debate because he's already sold him. Do you see what I'm saying? So it is important for the boss to get his view. This debate is a debate, but this debate is the reason why he's got to have a look for himself. Yeah. That's what I think. Anyway.
Mitch, let me bring you in.
Celso, though, Mitch.
No, Mitch, let me bring you in. You know, he's made the point in saying, look, in terms of the other boys here, we've got a big squad, but my view is I wanted to bring them on along just to work with them and get clarity in my head and give them clarity, because I think you'll find that a lot of them will say, to be honest, it's not for me. And the way we're playing and the way we're training, because like I say, I do things differently. Every day we have together, every game like the one against West Ham, it gives you clarity about certain things. And there's no doubt that the squad will be whittled down and there'll be some more changes between now and probably the end of the transfer window. Look, he's made very, very bold there, as Lee kind of referred to the fact that he is going to give everyone a chance. He's also going to make decisions that aren't going to please everybody. But we alluded to this earlier. To be honest with you, to get this team season ready or squad season ready, you've got to lose really at least, I would say, 8 or 9 to make it. Because I don't know, whether you agree here, Mitch, you've got to keep the squad competitive enough. So the players you've got there as a squad are all chomping at the bit where it's competitive for just Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, because there is no Europe. How difficult is it going to be able to do, Mitch? And also, where are you on this centre-back search at the moment?
Well, I think it's a bit of a difficult one, because I agree with what Lee was saying about the fact that he needs to have a look at every player, and he's obviously stated that in some of his quotes you've just read there. And it's the only thing I will say is, you know, he also will have done a bit of research before he joined the role, so he won't have come into it completely blind. He will have had an idea of some of the players, and you never know, he might have watched a few of them last season as well. He might have already had a bit of background research done on the club, which is absolutely fine. But I do actually agree with his decision to take all of those players out on the pre-season tour, because I think a lot of people do tend to forget that although they are like supreme athletes who everybody looks up to and admires, they are humans, and they play in and out of form at different times. Take the Heung-min Son thing from last season, for example. The guy revealed at the end of the year that he was playing with an injury for ages, a sports hernia, which, you know, ultimately is affected and hinders his performance. So when you combine things like that with a different style of play that obviously Ange is bringing to the club, different players are going to react differently to that, and some of them are going to thrive in those environments, some of them aren't. And when you bring in an attacking coach like we have done, all of a sudden, and this has been reflected on social media, I think we've all seen it, players like Lo Celso and Ndombele, those midfield players who have less of an emphasis and a desire to do the defensive work, are more interested, and they're standing out more in the performances because we've changed the way that we're playing. So it's a really difficult one. And I personally am of the opinion that if we can get a decent fee for Lo Celso, that we should probably sell him, just because, you know, he's had a couple of years now and he's been out on loan. And while he's maybe impressed for Villarreal and wherever else he's been, I don't think that he is necessarily the sort of thing that we're looking for to take us to that next level. Because you've got to remember, the ultimate goal is always to be better than what we were. Be honest with yourselves. And I know and this is not me saying that we're anywhere near that level, but the ultimate level that we as Spurs fans are looking for the club to get to are those peak Pochettino years. That era of football, that is what we're looking to get back to and surpass. That's why there's so much frustration around the club, is because we've seen that we can play at that level. We've had a manager and we've had a squad of players that can compete for the Premier League, albeit we obviously didn't get it over the line over a couple of seasons. But we know that that is possible within the club, and that's why we have such high standards around things. That's why we want to bring in such talented and good players, and that's why we want a manager who can deliver a similar style of football to Poch, and hopefully Ange is that man. But you know, you got to, with the bloated squad, you've got to be also a little bit strict about it, because, like you said, Ricky, the lack of European football this season is going to mean that there is less competition and less rotation across the year. So, you know, the FA Cup doesn't start till very late in the year. You've only got the Premier League and the Carabao Cup in the first few months of the season. So it's very likely that we're going to see quite a rigid starting 11, and that's purely just based on the difference in quality between some of our players that fit into that starting lineup and the rest of the squad, like I mentioned earlier, looking at that substitutes bench. So it's sort of, there's a bit of a balance in there in terms of how Ange is probably looking at it, and I think he's gone about it in completely the right way. But I do also now think we're getting to that stage where he needs to start making decisions, which I think he is, like with the Sanchez thing. I think a few more need to be made, needs to make a final decision on Dembele, and obviously whether we're bringing in replacements for that. And it's the same with the centre-back ones. I don't think that we're going to see too much of Eric Dyer in the upcoming season. I think he'll obviously stay at the club, which is lovely. Oh, Ranty, shout out, man. How you doing? Nice to see you in the comments. But yeah, I think that we're going to see less of people like Eric Dyer and perhaps Ben Davies this season as well. They'll probably just fit back into that rotational role, as opposed to what the number of minutes they played under Antonio Conte last season.
Mitch, are you worried? Are you worried that the club, and when I say the club, I'm talking about Daniel Levy, I'm talking about the board, just to clarify for the comments, right? When I talk about the club, that's what I'm talking about. Are you worried that the club are going to give Ange Clement Longley as a left-sided starting centre-back, and that our back four against Brentford is going to be a doggy, Clement Longley, Romero and Porro? Because I'm worried, Mitch. That I am worried that that's going to be the case, and that is just not going to work.
I'm not. I am worried, yes. I do think that is an option. I think there's been way too much noise around the whole situation and the fact that we're trying to get him either for free or for pennies. So that is obviously, I think, a backup plan for if, you know, I think the main issue with the two centre-backs we're pursuing at the moment is Tapsoba is demanding quite a heavy fee. I think the Van de Ven one, I don't really know what's going on.
Mitch, can I ask, what is the fee for Tapsoba being banned back? Because I think it's like 35 million or whatever for VDV, but I haven't really seen a fee.
It's about, I think they want somewhere between 40 and 50 million euros.
That's what I've been hearing. Yeah,
that kind of thing. That much. I mean, again, it's not my. It's not my money.
That is the going rate, but Macca, that is the going rate, isn't it? But I think that is the going rate now. If you want a top, I think look what we paid for Romero. I think if you want a decent centre half, it's going to cost you, isn't it?
This is what annoys me, because why are we penny pinching? Like, we're not a poor club, and that's why when I reference Aston Villa paying 60 million for Diaby, 50 to 60, Pau Torres, 40 million they paid for him. Why are we still penny pinching? I mean, in terms of the amount of money that the club brings in. I mean, yes, like 2 days ago, I couldn't get out of my house because there's a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. There's stuff going on all the time. Beyonce, Red Hot Chili Peppers, NFL. We've got go-karting coming. We've got this, we've got that. We've been in the Champions League last year. We've been in Europa League. We've been in, like, the club makes a lot of money. We're always on TV. Like, in terms of Tottenham as a global brand, we're huge, we're massive. Why are we struggling to pay 40 or 50 million for Tapsoba?
I don't think we understand it. It's not, I don't think it's anything to do with not being able to afford. I think we could afford, we could afford to spend 80, 90 million on a centre-back if we really, really wanted to. I think it will probably just be a case of maybe Daniel Levy himself does not value Tapsoba at that amount. And if you know what he's like, negotiations, you see it everywhere. He's a really tough negotiator. Clubs hate talking to him about transfers. And every now and again, you're going to come across people that are as stubborn as Daniel Levy is when it comes to selling his players. And it seems like that is probably the case with Tapsoba. They don't need to sell him because they've just sold Diaby for 50 million quid.
Mitch, are you also concerned? Again, it's just a question to you. Again, we don't need to be fat at the moment. We have a lot of journalists that come on the show. Mitch, are you concerned it's the fact that Spurs need to get centre-backs out, that we haven't brought one in maybe? Is that a concern?
Do you know what? I think that's probably what's going to happen. I don't personally think we're going to see us sign a centre back until that Sanchez deal is perhaps over the line and gone. And obviously that.
I don't think that's a money in or out though, Mitch.
Not to do with money.
I don't think it's a money in or out. I do agree with you, but I don't think that's a money in or out thing. I know everyone's bowing their heads because why do we have to sell before we buy? But you mentioned it earlier, Mitch. It's such a bloated squad. Yeah. If you go and bring in another two and you haven't got, what is going to happen? So I don't think it is money in, but I also think it's manageable. I also think it's a situation. Maybe it is a timing thing because of Ange's having a look and he's looking at all the guys that are on tour. But at some point, you've got to turn around and go, like, these are in my plans and these aren't. And you guys, you've got to go and find a new club. Whoever they are, forget the names. Everyone's got their own opinions on the names. But there's at least 7, 8, 9 of them names that needs to go away from this club and not just out on loan. You know, they need to go away from the club. I kind of agree with you, Pat, with Japhet Tanganga. Like, he's one of our own. Maybe he does need to in that alone and go and play a year of football like Skippy did. But you know, some of them others, you know, they've been out on loan. Lo Celso's been out on loan. And Dembele's been out on loan. Reggie's been out on loan. They're not cutting the mustard, right? They need to just move on. Like, you know, I know everyone's excited about Dembele. He doesn't do it. He didn't do it in a title-winning side last year. You know, at me if you want. He never plays 90 minutes. He's not what we need. He's not. And it's the same with Lo Celso. He played 45 minutes and people going, oh, he's great. He's a World Cup winner, whatever. Like, he didn't play in the World Cup. And he's not right for us for four seasons. Believe you me, if you can get a tune out of him, amazing. And I'll back Ange. But in that same instance, you've got to then back Ange if he keeps Davinson Sanchez and Derek Dyer at the club, which we won't do. Will we? I mean, you're all laughing.
It's tough because I wanted to butt in about Ndombele, but I was like, you know, I really want us to keep Ndombele. I really want to see him play in an attacking system. Remember, Poch brought him in, and then since then, he's had managers that don't suit his style of play. I think, ironically, Postecoglou is the guy that would suit him the most out of all the managers. So I am really pushing for Ndombele, but I would understand if we sold him. Lo Celso the same. But yeah, there's too many that, you know, that do definitely need to go.
The system thing is a big, look, the system thing is a really, not an argument, a really good debate because you are right. He hasn't played in the right systems. You know, and a lot of people saying the same thing in the comments also about Lo Celso as well. And, you know, I think Mitch said that as well. That is fair. However, you know, I'm going to get absolute pelters because I'm just making it balanced. I don't want to keep these players that I'm about to say, but you could also say that some of these defenders haven't played in the right system.
Stop it.
See what I'm coming for?
We're not going that path by an hour and 13 in, but I agree. Listen, again, people won't like it. Many will agree with that. And again, you're certainly under a different manager. Who knows? But as much as I love you, mate, I will say I do want to see some of them move on, please, for God's sake. We've got to try and bring
don't get me wrong. I do as well. Look, the thing is, I think Jamie, one of our own, back in the day on the Love Sport shows, back in when we were doing Emwick, he said, you've got to freshen up the squad and bring in fresh faces in. Look at Maddison. Look at what he's done. Like, he's changed. Like, to be fair, him and Kane, I haven't seen them two apart. In any of the videos of it, they've been sitting next to each other on the plane. Like, maybe that's a good thing for Kane's, future sticking around. But you know, you do need to bring fresh faces in, and I like that young, fresh faces coming in, like the VDVs and the Tapsobas, and come in, let's have a go. Like, I'm really excited to see them come in. We need to get them over the line, and if it is a 40 million and a 35 million and a 50 million fee, it's tough because some of the big fees, they haven't worked out. I mean, look at Richarlison. No. Is he going to do it for us this year, lads? He has to step up, doesn't he? Yeah. He has to 60 million.
But we can't keep using this excuse that, the big signings haven't worked, because at the end of the day, big clubs do have flops, and Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, they don't use that excuse. 72 million. Yeah, they don't use that excuse. They didn't work, so we're going to go that. No, come on. Just obviously do your due diligence, do more homework, understand the player, understand their persona, personality, blah, blah, blah. But we can't use it as an excuse, because otherwise we're never going to be able to compete.
Yep.
That's where that human element comes in. Sorry, Rick, just quickly. That's where that human element comes in, where you've touched on before. It's where Ange Postecoglou is so brilliant. It's about that competence, about that behaviour, that personality. Can this individual, is he the right fit for us, not just technically? This is why I go back to the Celsos and the Dembélés. Technically, they're very different, brilliant footballers. Do they fit into who we are and what we need? Because I get the impression that Celso thinks he's too good for Tottenham. That's what I personally think. And I just think that in Dembélé, wherever he's been, even in Napoli, he never played the full 90 minutes and whatever because he just hasn't got it in him. He ain't got the right attitude to do that. If Ange can get that out of both of them, there's no doubt we've got two bowlers there. But I'm just sceptical because of what I've already seen. Like, we've all seen it with our own eyeballs.
No, that's fair. That's fair to be fair.
I've got to say, guys, we're an hour and 15 into one of the most fluid Last One on Spurs shows. If the football was as fluid as this conversation, we're going to be in for a very, very exciting time for this upcoming season. Before we do touch on Harry Kane's future, because we do need to cover that, and I'm conscious again of time for all you bingo card callers out there, you can take it off your book list now, your bucket list, and we've got to squeeze in Harry Kane's conversation and where we are with that. Before we do...
Before we do that, though, Rick, can I just ask another bingo card? What is James Maddison, just quickly?
He's a lockpicker. We hope so. We've had some lovely quotes actually from Ange on James Maddison, which we will hopefully towards the end of the show come on to. But before we do, just to kind of give a bit of an update where we are with regards to Spurs' pursuit of Ashley Phillips. Now, it looked at the back end of last week, Spurs were closing in on a defender. Now, at the time, what we understood, it was going to be around a 2 million to 3 million deal for an under-19 who was very much one for the future. As friend of the show, Ali Gold was telling us, 6'3", 6'3", a really commanding centre-back, but one that was going to be going into the youth development, but would have come away with Tottenham for this tour. It hasn't materialised as of yet. And we understand the reason for that is that Blackburn have upped that fee now, which Spurs looked like they were going to close in on now, to a whopping 9.45 million. And that would mean Spurs would have to pay a big sum of that up front, along with a potential 2 million in extras to secure the deal. So that's why things have gone quiet. It will be interesting to see if Tottenham do look to go back to that deal before the end of this window and whether Blackburn are open to selling. But as things stand, there's no movement on that currently. But again, look, it's the transfer window. Things can always change. But as we are recording right here, it's at a stalemate on that deal for the young defender, Ashley Phillips. Again, just for clear reference, we've mentioned a lot of players on this show. Spurs are open to offers for Davinson Sanchez, Joe Rodon, and Japhet Tanganga this summer. They also still have a firm interest in Tosin Adarabioyo of course, Fulham. And they've lost quite a few players to Fulham this summer already. Manager Marco Silva looks like committed his future until the next Saudi offer comes up, of course. Defenders Mark Gahey and Joachim Anderson are also on Spurs' radar. And I think, as Mitch mentioned earlier, as well as Pat and Lee, Clement Longley is one defensive option still being studied by the club between now and the end of the window, who they may look to bring back. Right. We have had some news, Mitch. I want to turn to you before we look towards Harry Kane on Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. Now, as we understand it on this Sunday evening, we've had reports that Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg has agreed personal terms with Atletico Madrid. And it is now just a case of Tottenham Hotspur and Atletico Madrid agreeing a fee for the player in order so he can conclude that move to the Spanish club. What I want to ask you, Mitch, is that a good decision for both parties? And ultimately, if Spurs are to let him go, does he need a replacement?
I think if we get a decent enough fee for him, I think anywhere around the £30 million mark and above, I think is a decent fee for a player of Hojbjerg's calibre, considering his age. I think he's 27, a few years left on his contract, and he played almost every minute for us last season. I think that will be a good deal. It's just quite funny. Obviously, personal terms have been agreed, as you've just said there. The only thing left to do now is for the two clubs to agree a fee, which I wonder how long that'll take.
God knows how long that's going to take. I did leave that out purposely, Mitch, as you probably will understand why I did do that out.
No, but yeah, I think if coming from me and just me personally, I think he does need a replacement. I know a lot of people believe that Pat Matasar they'd like to see him slot into that role, and they possibly think he's ready to fit into that role that Hojbjerg had last season. I don't think he's quite there yet. I don't think he's necessarily got the experience. So for me, I'd be definitely looking at getting a replacement in. Who that replacement will be, obviously, there's again a lot of names being floated out and around. Obviously, you've had Conor Gallagher's been sort of the main one, I think, in the last couple of days. Aston Villa's Douglas Luiz has been another one that's been floating around as well. I think Arsenal were interested in him in January. So it'd be interesting to see if that's something that sort of materialises. But yeah, I think it's probably the right time for him to move on, because I think what Spurs have been quite guilty of in the last few seasons is not selling players when they've had a bit of value left. They've sort of waited until they either go into decline or they go into the last years of their contract. I think we had a sizable offer for Lucas Moura at one point, sometime around that Ajax game and that whole Champions League run, and we decided not to sell him, and he's left on a free now. So for Hojbjerg, I know he is probably the one player in the club that splits the fan base the most. Some people really love him and what he does, and some people cannot stand him. They think he's just a passion merchant, or I don't know what people refer to him as these days. But for me, it's been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of what he's contributed. I think he probably went off the boil a bit last year, purely because he was knackered playing every single game, because we didn't really have any capable replacements for him in that midfield role, doing all of that running and everything else. But yeah, it seems to be something that Ange must have already approved, because we're hearing so much about it. I don't think that he's going to have a problem with him going. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to hear what the guys think about on this whole deal, and whether they think that he should be replaced, whether we should be giving Skip or Sarr or Lo Celso and Mbele that role. But for me, yeah, he's someone that if we can get a decent fee for him, absolutely, we'll have no problems going. He's not my favourite player in the world, but I think he's done okay for us, considering we signed him for pretty cheap from Southampton a couple of years ago. And yeah, I'd like to see us get someone in. I'm quietly optimistic about the idea of bringing someone like Conor Gallagher to the club, because I loved him when he was on loan at Palace last season. Not so much when he was back at Chelsea. So it'd be interesting whether that's a realistic deal between Chelsea and Spurs. I'm not quite sure. And I know there's other names that have been floated out there, I think, as well. I'm sure Pat or Lee might have remember their names, because they've gone off mad. Viega or someone.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say Gabby Viega. He's somebody that I kind of was getting into a bit of a heated debate on Twitter over, because I said, as opposed to Gabby Viega, like Mitch was saying, I'd rather see Sarr brought through. And I know a lot of people say Sarr's not ready yet, but sometimes a young player's never ready until you give them a run of games. Whenever Sarr's come in, he's looked good. I mean, we'll talk about that San Siro away game, Champions League. We are threadbare, shorter players. Sarr next to Hojbjerg, and they look much better than the guy Tonali, who's just gone to Newcastle for 50 million. So I think Sarr, every time he's played, he's looked good. And then frustratingly, we don't see him again for 10 games. So I think Sarr now is at the point where he needs the opportunity and he needs to play more. Again, the cameo last week, he looked really good. But Gabby Viega is somebody who I feel is a very good player. And, if we was to get rid of Hojbjerg and bring him in, that is a big upgrade. He looked really good for Celta Vigo last year. Funny enough, he played in the under-21s final against England. He looked okay, but you wouldn't have thought he was a top player. But he's good, he's young, a lot of energy, and he's very, very technically sounded. So, yeah, but again, like Derek saying in the comments, I think it's time for Sarr to be pushed forward now. And we brought him in. When we brought him in, he was basically a golden kid and considered one of the best youngsters in the world. And we've kind of like stunted his progress. And we kind of did the same to Oliver Skip, and now Skip isn't where we thought he would be. We did the same to Winks, and Tanganga's another perfect example where the guy looked mustard at 2021, and now he's 24 and he's not really where he needs to be. So I think it's time to get Sarr in and let him play.
Lee, let's come over to close this. I know I'm going to talk about Harry Kane. God knows where that conversation is going to go. Lee, where we are with obviously this midfielder situation, Hojbjerg wants to leave. Looks like he's going to be given Champions League football, of course, at Atletico Madrid. Is that a deal you'd be keen to do? And if so, do you feel we do need to bring in I'd say a direct replacement, but someone that is going to be, I would say, a lot more flexible to that role, that can actually bring the ball forward, provide goals and assists? Maybe many would feel that's what Conor Gallagher would do, along with Pat has mentioned, Gabby Viega. What do you think, Lee, for you?
Yeah, I think I'm one of these people that Mitch referenced earlier about kind of which side do I sit on with Hojbjerg. I actually had a man crush on the bloke as well. I think he's a dust. I think Cracker's named him the Dustman when he first comes to the football club. One of our own, John from Lily White Rose, put out a stat on Twitter that said that he's started 145 games in the last 3 seasons for Tottenham. So, and bearing in mind, he's had like 5 managers. So if every single manager is coming in that door, regardless of the quality of their managers, is picking him every single time, he's got to have something. I also think that, I also agree with the lads. They mentioned earlier that, he was knackered because he was doing, 2 people's jobs. And Eric Dyer got that tag as well under Pochettino when I think it was when Dembele was out injured, or when both Wanyama and Dembele was out injured, and he was having to do 2 jobs in that holding midfield role. And it was one of the positions we were screaming out for years for Tottenham. We need a holding midfielder, and we get one in Hojbjerg in terms of the Dustman. So I think he's done relatively well for the club. I think his goal scoring and assist scoring is always under the microscope, but I think he scored some wonderful goals for us last year. The long range effort from against Chelsea doesn't get spoken about enough. That winner in Marseille, which is unbelievable game. The situation that the club was in, and he goes through, and that finish was as good as anybody can finish. So you look at some of that. I will have fond memories of him. I don't look at him at that kind of sideways, backwards, negative. I think that was a circumstance that happened. However, I totally agree with Mitch. 2 years left on his contract. He's perfect time to sell. If he wants to go and explore other opportunities, we can get a fee for him. Transfer market, if you use that, is valuing today of around 45 million euros. So that gives you a kind of good indication. I think would we pay for him 5 million and Carl Walker-Peters? So to go and get, say, 35 million pounds for him is a no-brainer. I think we should let him go. In terms of replacement, I'm going to go not left field, but I'm going to go a bit out there and do something slightly different. I think that position can be played by Basuma as a number 6. I think we've got Skip as a backup number 6 potentially. I think we've got Saar there as well. I'd actually go and sign JWP from Southampton. In fact, one of his colleagues, he's a homegrown player. I think you can get him relatively. I know he's on a long contract at Southampton, but obviously been relegated. So I think you can get him into a decent price. I also think he's an absolute master at dead ball situations. And I know we've just got Madders, but again, I think when you're looking at a position, he is a kind of a number 8. He's not defensive midfield, he's more quarterbacky type person. But I think that if you would have a Basuma and you'd have a Maddison, and let's give you and Dembele, because I know you lot want to keep him, whatever. So we have and then Dembele to move around. You see that, and then you have a Skip and or a JWP within that midfield. I think you can. I think that he would offer. I think JWP would offer a more attacking threat than what Hojbjerg has done traditionally, but he can actually mix it up. I think he had top 3 in terms of interceptions last year in midfield. In the Premier League, in a Southampton side, by the way, that got relegated. So I would go for somebody like that rather than maybe a more fancy overseas name, because I do think that the homegrown pieces would be good. And I think before Southampton got relegated and he's on a 5-year contract, I think the bloke's probably worth 75, 80 million quid, and he bangs in free kicks all over the gaff. So if you could go and pick him up for a fee that was roughly similar, I don't know whether that's you can do that or not, to what we sell Hojbjerg for, I think that would be an amazing deal, personally. What did you think of that? What do you think, JWP? Do you think that is just a shit, rubbish idea? Or
I think Spurs, listen, I think whatever happens, if we're going to sell Hojbjerg, just in my personal opinion, I think Spurs do need to fill that with somebody outside of who we've got. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, so a replacement needs to come in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Ward-Prowse is a player with a dead ball situation. I think before we had Maddison in, I would have been saying to you, I think, again, Ward-Prowse. My only concern is bringing someone in like a Ward-Prowse. I don't see how that works. We've also had Maddison in the team, and then you had Bentancur to that and Basuma. But I think, look, it'd be great to have a variation of options. I think, again, the biggest thing that we keep on saying at the moment is that with the size of this squad, how are we going to keep everybody happy? I think that's a really big key.
So in fact, on that point, then, do we need a replacement then? Because I mean, Paulina is a great shout. Loads of people in the comments saying Paulina from Fulham, great shout. But then, do we need a replacement? Because if you're then on the other side going, how are we going to keep everyone happy? Because for a second, it was only a second, I promise you, I forgot about Bentancur because obviously he's injured, so he's not really going to be back to full fitness until January, is he? Let's be honest. Even if he comes back in October, he's not going to be right. But yeah, when he comes back into the squad, you've basically even without Hojbjerg and you're keeping Sarr, you've got Sarr, Skip, Basuma, Maddison, Bentancur, and one of your fancy signings like your Ndombele's or your Lo Celso's. So if you kept one of them, you've got six.
You're still overstocked,
haven't you?
Yeah, you are. I think it'll be really
the one position that we don't need to really replace. So that's why I'm saying push Sarr through. Bentancur,
Alfie Devine as well.
I think what's key, Pat, and again, Pat, you come on to this. I think what's key is that if Spurs do not send Sarr out on loan, it will be interesting to see if they do bring somebody in for Hojbjerg, because that might be a key, Pat, on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I really want to see Sarr play this season. And if he's not going to play here, then we do need to send him out on loan, because I feel there's a very, very good player there. And he's 20 years old now. I don't want to see him get stifled. He needs regular minutes at this age. He really needs to step up and get minutes now in the tank.
Yep. Jay Lambert in the comments here makes a good point. Says we need defenders. Laugh out loud. So quick question on the back of that then, lads. Would you get a replacement in for Hojbjerg, or rather go and spend bigger money on 2, 3, maybe even 4 centre backs? Like, what would you rather? Do you know what I mean? If it was a choice,
you have to get a centre back. You have to.
Got to be CBs, isn't it?
Mitch, do you agree? Have to get a centre back in it.
Oh yeah. If you could take the Hojbjerg money and add that to the defender fund, I think you have to do that 100%.
Love Music just says here, before we talk about Kane, as the manager, a team that concedes 60 goals, does it not concern you if your tenure as a manager that you don't have the defenders and will pay the price? So really good point on that. Right, what we are going to do, guys, we're an hour and a half in, conscious of these guys' times as well. We are going to close things on the Harry Kane. So sorry, boys. It's been such a fluid conversation. I didn't want to interrupt you. It has been a fluid conversation. We are going to close it on the Harry Kane debate. We've got over 13 to 1,400 of you watching us live. Again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support for Last One on Spurs. Just a reminder, I know you're going to laugh when I say this, that we are powered by NordVPN. And on the back of the fact we've not had a preseason game today, just a reminder, of course, that you can use that code LWS to get yourself a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 month for free and a bonus gift. It is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money guarantee. And just to bear in mind as well, Barcelona still to come Tottenham's way, Shakhtar Donetsk still to come Tottenham's way. So for our overseas fans that are looking to get around Spurs play, that's one way you can do it. Right, the time is here, guys. We've got to try and battle through this in the most politest of ways. So Mitch, I'm going to start with you. Harry Kane's future and where we are at. Right, so to avoid trying to derail this show, just to bring you up to context and speed up to where we are with Harry Kane, the latest news we had was towards the end of last week, where, again, a lot of the mainstream media, the likes of Ali Gold, Sammy Mockbell, of course, from the well-respected British press of football, tell us that Harry Kane will not sign a new contract at Tottenham Hotspur this summer, but, of course, he's open to remain in N17, and if the club progresses under Ange Postecoglou, he could change his mind. We do understand, however, if Bayern Munich were to submit a bid this summer, that Harry Kane would be open to talking about Bayern Munich. Now, I just want to just bring on to one thing before I bring Mitch in. We did see on Friday or Thursday a really bit of a cringeworthy moment in a press conference where a German reporter held up a Bayern Munich shirt with Kane on the back, which Postecoglou, I thought, handled absolutely superb. He said that, did you get a laugh there? You've come all that way for that. Thank you. And it was the Bild reporter, Max Schrader, who has now had his accreditation revoked after that incident and has been banned from all future Tottenham press conferences, which, again, I think is a strong statement just how much that irked not only Tottenham, but Ange Postecoglou. Again, I have to say, handled it ever so well. He said, look, as I said, it's a massive football club, massive opportunity, massive challenge, and that's what I'm trying to do. Bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world, big enough to make up the fake jumpers to be a presence. And I thought we handled that ever so well. So, Mitch, we'll go straight to you then, the boys, to close it. Harry Kane's future, where do you personally think we're at? And I suppose it's the $1 million question. Will Harry Kane be a Spurs player come the end of this summer window, in your opinion?
Well, I actually think he will be a Spurs player come the end of the summer window. I am firmly in the camp of I would rather lose him for free next summer, unless he made it abundantly clear, that he wants out and he wants out now. And if it would potentially impact his performances over the course of a new campaign, then perhaps that's the only way I'd consider wanting to sell him this summer, unless of course PSG do want to swap Mbappe for him. Then I'm all hands on deck for that. I'll help make it happen if it's possible. But anyway, I think, look, there's no getting around the fact that the German media have been very, very heavy on the whole thing, and I think it's part of their whole tactical ploy of how Bayern Munich go about signing most of their players. I think they're used to doing it over in Germany, and they're used to bullying their way through a lot of the Bundesliga teams. And I think they're finding out very quickly that that's not going to work with us. I think it's probably the last club you want to do that with. But yeah, I mean, and just to mention on your point about the build report on Max in that press conference, I think it's just utterly ridiculous. The amount of people that would give a lot to be able to sit in a press conference with the Spurs manager and be able to ask him questions and get that accreditation and follow the club around the world and do that. And just incredibly disrespectful to go there with a Bayern Munich shirt with Kane on the back. But anyway, I think it's a really interesting one, because obviously the English media is very firmly like, Harry Kane obviously is not going to sign a new contract this summer, but he is open to all possible avenues still. I think he'd obviously be quite silly to sign something this summer, purely because that would completely shut the door on him leaving, especially with quite a bit of the transfer window left over the course of the next month or so. Anyway, but I think I don't know if I'm deluded, and I'm sure one of you guys will tell me if I am, but I still have a weird feeling in my head that he could still end up signing a new contract. Obviously, the one that is reportedly on the table for him, you're looking at something like 400k a week, much more than what he's on at the moment. I think every single player that's offered to, regardless as to how long you've been at a club, is going to sit down and have a think about that and take notice of it. But it's just I feel like we're sort of nearing the road that we went down with the whole City thing. City are going to come in with a bid for Harry Kane, and we just so left in the dark. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the thing that's frustrated me the most with the whole thing. I think we all just want a bit of clarification on it. However, I firmly believe that Bayern Munich don't have the balls to fork up the money that Daniel Levy wants for him. I don't think they're willing to pay over £100 million for him, which he is worth, regardless as to how long he's got left on his contract. If he's got 1 year, doesn't matter. He's worth 100 million, 120 million to Spurs. So that's what Bayern Munich are going to have to pay for him. You can say, we'll go for a free next year. But, if Harry Kane helps us get into the Champions League next season, then that makes up for that sort of loss in revenue and in funds. So I think he'll stay. I don't think he is pushing so much for a leave. For leaving the club, as the German media are making it out. He only wants Bayern Munich. Thomas Tuchel's pushing really hard. Katie Kane, who, they can't even have the decency to get her name right, is out shopping for houses in Munich. All a load of rubbish. And I think that if he were to stay at Spurs for the next year, then he'd be more than happy with that. He loves the club, and he would love the opportunity to try and win the trophy with us over the next year. So my opinion, he stays. My hope is that he signs a new contract, but from my perspective, I can't see him leaving this summer, because I just don't think Bayern are willing to pay what we want for him.
And finally, Mitch, he's in your 11, is he, for Brentford on that opening game of the season?
Yeah, and I think you have to give him the captain's armband. I appreciate that, you've got players in that squad like Maddison, who's just come in, and Son, who perhaps have those qualities as well to be able to lead the team. But I think Harry Kane has got to be the man that has that captain's armband, even if he's not committed to the club for the future just yet.
Yep. We're going to go to Pat and close it with Lee. Pat, coming over to you. I think many are asking you to comment on these. I am laughing. These Mbappe rumours. Even I'm laughing. I mean, I know when that got put out on Last One Spurs last night, I know people were laughing at us even to mention it. Look, it was reported by, many would say a credible source. That's why it was out there. Again, I'll let you believe how credible that is. Pat, this has been an ongoing conversation that we've had since you've joined Last Word on Spurs, really, in the last 4 or 5 months. Harry Kane's future has dominated pretty much every single one of the episodes in which you've been on Last Word on Spurs. And I think, again, the reason why we're saving this for the end is because we don't want it to dominate a show. and take away from what is really going on and around the football club. And of course, the Harry Kane situation is present, it's ongoing, but the reality is none of us really know how this is going to end this summer. So, Pat, from what you hear, from what you see from Kane himself, how do you expect things to end, Pat? Is your opinion changing at all with every week that you're on here in the difference of Harry Kane?
You know what? I have to be so careful how I word this, because for me, I've said this before, Harry Kane is my favourite ever Spurs player. He's a guy that I've watched week in and week out. I absolutely love him. I adore him. I think we're so lucky to have seen Harry Kane, have had him come through the academy. I don't think people really appreciate and understand how much of a success story Harry Kane is and how amazing the guy is, in terms of to get an academy player who's a genuine world-class player, comfortably one of the first, second or third best strikers in the world. And he's come through our academy, and the guy's literally risen to every challenge, cemented himself. You know, when he first came through, rivals knocked him, one season wonder, he's this, he's that, and never do it. The guy seamlessly stepped into the England squad, scored on his debut, and has literally been the best player for England and Tottenham since. It's criminal that he didn't win Player of the Year when he won the assist crown and won the Golden Boot. The guy's done it all. 3 Golden Boots, the only player to ever score 30 goals in 2 calendar seasons and not win another Golden Boot. So technically could have had 5. He's got a World Cup Golden Boot. He's got an assist or playmaker, crown. He's insane. Probably one of the best strikers we're ever going to see in the Premier League. And it's only when he retires and people step away from, he played for Tottenham, he didn't win anything, that they understand how good of a player he is. So with all that being said, I'm so frustrated and annoyed that this cloud is hanging over us. But I do understand, because he's that good of a player. And let's be honest, the media hate Tottenham. They hate our story. They hate that we've become as good as we've been without a mega cash influx, without, we've done it the organic way. People talk about Newcastle, they spoke about Leicester, but Tottenham are a team that never were really meant to punch and hang out with the heavyweights and the big boys, and we've done it. And we've done it the right way. And of course, we haven't got across the line, and, we've become the butt of jokes and this and that. But if you actually look at where we come from and what we're doing, it's outstanding. It's just a shame that we didn't actually get that trophy. And who knows, it may come this year. I'm hoping it does. But so, yeah, with all that being said, and Harry Kane being as good as he is, I understand the media hate the fact that he's at Tottenham. And they're always trying to sell him and get him away from our club. So sometimes when you see all these stories, you have to really take it with a pinch of salt, because the media are always working overtime. So when I see fans say, get him out of our club, he deserves trophies, we should let him go. I'm like, why would you want your best ever player to leave? Like, I'd never want Kane to, and I'm not holding him hostage. He signed a 5-year or 6-year deal. He understood when he signed it, how good he was and what was going to happen. And of course, the club hasn't gone on trajectory that was meant to. Daniel Levy 100% hasn't backed the squad like he should have. But then I'll never want to rush Kane out the door. No way. And like Mitch said, I don't care if he leaves on a free next season. I'd rather he stay this year. And Harry Kane is such a great professional that he's never going to down tools, not play to his best ability and help the team. He loves Tottenham. And he's just that guy that would love to break every single record and he wants to be the best in the world. He believes he's the best in the world and he wants to show that. So I don't think he's ever not going to perform. So for me, I want to keep him. I'm hoping that if the football's good and things go the way they're meant to, then he can sign and extend. I want to see Kane here for the rest of his life. But also at the same time, I understand that if things do continue, we're going to always have this question hanging over us, because he is that good and people don't want to see him at Tottenham. Let's just be honest. So I'm a bit torn when I say it, because if I'm being honest, as much as I love Harry Kane and I'd want him to be the captain, I'd rather go to Sonny. I've just got to be real. Because like I said on this show before, Son showed loyalty when he didn't have to. When Nuno was our manager and a lot of clubs wanted Son, he signed a 5-year deal. You've never seen, every time a rumour's come out about Son, he shut it down straight away. I think Son is just like, when you look at basically who's for Tottenham, who's ride or die. When Harry Kane was injured, Son always stepped up. Man City Champions League, Man City in the league, really, like, Son's always been that guy to really push us through when Kane wasn't about. So I wouldn't be aggrieved if Sonny was given the captain's armband, considering he wants to be here. He's never flirted or played around with other clubs. But Harry Kane is so good. I understand again why. So, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm even torn when I'm saying this, but I wouldn't be aggrieved if Sonny was given the captain's armband. But I understand if Kane stays, he has to have it. So I'm kind of, 50-50 with it. But I don't want to see Kane sold. I'm never going to lie to you and say I do. I'm never going to be one of these guys that pushes Harry Kane out the door. Yeah, Gina, I agree. Captain Sonny, but also Harry Kane is so good. And he is literally Spurs through and through. So, yeah, it's a tough one. I hope Kane stays, but also like Mitch is saying, like you can't insult us and offer 60 million, 70 million. If Havertz is going for 65, if Mason Mount's going for 60 million, and I'm seeing all these other guys go for around about that fee, even with 6 months left on the contract, and he's a genuine world-class striker, 100 million is standard, and that should be the minimum that we ask for. Because if we do sell Harry Kane, we're never going to be able to get a player even half as good as him. So obviously we're going to have to invest that money and go again. So yeah, it makes sense. Hold out. Ideally, Kane stays and signs. But to be fair to Harry Kane, like just show some ambition, show some actual desire to get better. And then obviously Harry Kane will want to stay. But at the moment, when we're messing about and we can't even, agree a fee on Tapsoba, we can't get Micky Van de Ven in the door. This Ashley Phillips guy, we say that we're close, and then all of a sudden we're way off. It's embarrassing, and you're looking at it from a player standpoint. Someone like Harry Kane, I would feel embarrassed if I was Harry Kane right now, because the way the club's moving is not how the big boys move. When you look at Aston Villa, how they're operating, even how Newcastle are getting their transfer things through the door, Man United, what they're doing, Chelsea as well. Why don't we act like that? And that would show Harry Kane and give him the confidence to actually sign a new deal. So, yeah, I'm so torn with it. But again, I'd never want to see Harry Kane leave. So that's just how I feel about it.
You know what? I mean, again, there's so much we could say about the Harry Kane debate, but I think primarily the reason why we said it to the end is because ultimately we could do an hour or 2 hours on Harry Kane and nothing's really going to change. So
yeah.
I think for all of our sakes, we want to do 2 hours on Harry Kane. Lee, I'm going to close it with you. I've got to say, there's been so many flurry of some lovely comments that come in tonight. First time viewers, first time listeners that are watching for the first time live. Again, thank you so much for all your incredible support. To have 1,400 of you watching us live when we're not even reviewing a game is saying remarkable. And again, thank you so much to these wonderful guys that you see on the screen. They give up so much time for this show. And again, 2 hours of their time on an evening where Spurs haven't even played. Lee, I'm going to close it with you. Postecoglou conceded that he is not relaxed about the unresolved question of Harry Kane's future. And he warned that Tottenham cannot allow the uncertainty over Harry to drag on much longer. He said, fair to say I'm not relaxed about it. It's like you go, well, it does or doesn't happen. I mean, it's a very important part of this football club, not just the team, but the football club. He's such a massive figure. And I've said this already, whilst my focus isn't on it on a daily basis because of other things I need to do, I know that any time I'm talking to you guys, referring to the press, whenever Harry is going to talk, that's the first question you are going to get. So you've got to deal with it. And I think for everyone concerned, we don't want to be doing that for too long. I don't think it's good for anyone. I don't think it's good for Harry. I don't think it's good for the club. Because as laser focused as we want to be, you end up sort of repeating yourself along the way. But the flip side of that is, I don't want to put a deadline on that because that adds even more pressure. You want these things to happen for the right reasons. The reality of it all is he's still a contracted player of our football club. So that's the way I want to see him. It's not like his contract is ending on the 12th of August. He's got to make a decision. He's got another year. So from that apart, I'm not relaxed, but I'm not putting pressure on him or anyone else at the football club saying, well, we'll need to do this. But I don't think deep down any of us want it to go on for too long. Again, every time Postecoglou speaks, I'm not just saying this, I really do love the guy. I think he's handled such a difficult situation well. He honestly is so impressive. Lee, let's close it with you, Harry Kane. Where do you think we're at? And ultimately, where do you think this is going to end this summer?
Look, a couple of things. Okay, so in 2021, I got information that he was going to stay, and that there was I want to say contract of sorts, but there was an agreement reached that he would stay with the football club, and that's exactly what happened. I've also got information this time around that Harry Kane wants to go to Bayern Munich. Okay, I'm not saying that he's definitely going to go. I'm saying that I've got that information that he wants to go. if that's the case, if Harry does want to go for a new challenge, and he's already kind of come out of sorts and said via different journalists or different journalists are reporting that Harry wants to do for the best thing for the football club, and i.e. not do a Sol Campbell essentially. If Harry does want to go, then I think that the offer that the club, and again, this is not inside information at all, but this is just my humble opinion. So, prefer it in the bin straight after if you want. I think that Daniel and the football club will want to have some sort of record transfer. And given the fact that Declan Rice has just moved to Arsenal for 105 as the most expensive British player, I think the offer coming in from Bayern Munich or whoever else wants to bid, there is other football clubs out there, I think, it needs to be above 105, 106, 108 million quid for Daniel to even deal. And Daniel might not deal, right? And I think Harry's pretty relaxed with that. I agree with Mitch. Why would Harry want to go now when actually he can sign a pre-contract, as a few people have pointed out in the comments, in 6 months' time with an overseas club? But he can go wherever he wants to go, wherever he wants, in 12 months' time. Why would you want? And that wherever he wants could be another deal at Tottenham, right? We've seen some of high-profile players run their contract down and then still sign another contract. But you look at I'm going to butcher their name, so forgive me, but Gundogan, I think I got that right. Gundogan, right? He was absolutely outstanding for Man City. He run his contract down, and then people going, "Oh, he's probably going to extend." Then he went to Barcelona. So, big players do run their contracts down now. Mbappe, look at everything that's happening with Mbappe as well, whereby he, run his contract down, then you want to get this massive deal where he become, I don't know, vice president of the director of football club or whatever it is. So players are getting more and more power. The Man City scenario, Kane didn't have the power because he had 3 years left on his contract. Now, Kane has got the power because Kane can say, look, I'm pretty relaxed. Me and my wife, my family, we're pretty chilled. We're pretty happy here. Tottenham was a great club. I'd love to win something here. However, me and my wife, my family, we're happy to go in on a new adventure and to go to Germany and look at that as well. I think it's down to Bayern Munich to put money on the table to see if Daniel and the club are going to deal. And that's why I think we're at. I think Kane's pretty relaxed on it. I think if we as football fans, what we need to do is we need to weigh up the keeping Harry Kane for the next season and being the best that we can be with Harry, or moving on now. And I think that's the key difference, because at some point Harry's going to move on, whether or not it's in 8 years' time or whether it's in a year's time. I'm trying to be pragmatic. I think for me, if Harry genuinely wants to go, if Harry, and he hasn't, I don't think they've had this conversation as if you just read out the quotes from Ange, but if they've had the conversation where Harry's gone, boss, you know what, I really want to go. If that is happening, I think we should let him go. I do. I think we should let him go, because in the same breath of Hojbjerg and the same breath as everything else, if somebody is at the football club that doesn't really want to be there, how does that affect the rest of the team, the morale? That he's a full-on professional and he's not going to down tools or anything like. I totally agree with you, lads, that you said that, and he will go on with it. But there would be in the back of your mind, do you know what? Rick's going. He don't really want to be here now. Rick's not going to be last one on Spurs anymore. Can he be our leader? Can he be our captain in that scenario? So
you mean I might get a break? That'd be fucking lovely.
Well, you get a break, yeah. But just see where I'm coming from. I think it is, and I think Ange Postecoglou, by saying the comments, and to be fair to you, but you said there should be a deadline on this a few weeks ago. You said, but I think Ange coming out by saying, look, it's not. I'm not relaxed about it, and we need to do it, sort it out sooner rather than later. I think that for me is signalling that Ange wants that team dynamic, and you either, like he said it himself, and I've been quoting the crazy train since the Jose Mourinho days, right? And he's nicked my words, right? But he's come out and said, like, you're either on the train or you're not. He's using that phrase almost to sign players like Matters. Whether you come and join us on this train or not, Matters, I added the train bit. But whether or not you're coming and join us on this train or not, Tottenham's going to be a completely different club next year. Maybe with Kane just playing his football and playing under Ange, you might go, do you know what, this is amazing. I'm loving the training. I'm loving the fact that we're scoring bagfuls of goals and loads of chances. And therefore, he may end up signing a new contract. Just a bit on that. I think the planning side of things we talked about right at the beginning, but these players' contracts, it should never have got to this stage. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that. It should never have got to, when Kane decided that he was staying, and then conversations were having, that private conversations were having, and he decided to stay because, something was agreed, or, I'm not going to give the details, but something was agreed, and that's why he stayed. That's the point when he should have signed a new contract. And if he couldn't sign a new contract at that point because he wanted to see what was happening, in the second season of Antonio Conte, when we just got in the Champions League, when Sonny just got the golden boot, when everyone was happy and loving it, the club should have tied him down to a new contract then, because he had Antonio Conte, we had a brilliant pre-season. We were going in best Premier League start to before that World Cup.
Champions League.
That was in Champions League. That would have been a point to say, Harry, this is the time. And we haven't managed it. Whether or not they tried or not, we'll probably never know. But that was the point. And now to get to the point where your best ever player, I agree with you, Pat. We've seen Jermaine Defoe. Absolutely love Jermaine Defoe. We had the benefit of Christmas. Absolutely so lucky, me and Ricky, to interview Jermaine on this very show. Absolutely love him. Berbatov, Keane, Bale, Modric. We've seen some Allegedly King, unbelievable. But Kane is the best, in my opinion, that I've seen full on live. So to get to this situation is look, it is heartbreaking. It is, but it's got to be the right thing for the football club. I don't necessarily think the money is the thing, but I think knowing Daniel, obviously I don't know Daniel, but knowing Daniel's,
well, you just let it slip, Lee. You let it slip.
No, he's paying me. Sorry, boss. At the end of the day, knowing Daniel's will do, I think he will want a first. Do you know what I mean? Like with Bale, he wanted it to be the biggest transfer fee. And at the time, it was the biggest transfer fee, wasn't it? And I think he'll want that with Kane. And I just can't see, like Mitch said, why would Bayern now spend 106, 107 million pounds or 120 million euros on someone they could sign on a pre-contract in 6 months or get for free? And the only reason why they would do it is because they know that he don't want to go to Bayern. He wants to stay in the Premier League. And he knows in a year's time that he can go to any Premier League club and go and beat Shearer's record. I mean, Man City might still sign him. He might go Man City. You say about Haaland, but he still might go. It's free. Why wouldn't you have Kane? Why wouldn't you have Kane on the free? Think about Kane, what you just said. On a free, like Pat, what you said earlier about him being the best striker, one of the best strikers. He's free in a year. Yeah. Who wouldn't want him? Who wouldn't want him?
I still think he's the best striker in the world. I know Haaland had an insane season, but when you look at how good Harry Kane is in every single level of, in terms of what you want from a number 9, Kane does that in abundance. Plus, he's a fantastic playmaker. His intelligence and how he reads the game is fantastic. He's better at dribbling than most people give him credit for. He's actually got a decent turn of pace. The guy's phenomenal. I think he's the best striker in the world. And like you said, for free, he can go anywhere. Like literally,
you've got to remember, like we talked earlier about the Ange thing and the human thing. We are trying to humanise footballers a little bit more now, especially with what's gone on with Dele Alli and all of the things that has hit our football club. And Ange coming in is very much a people person. It might be, and I'm not saying this will happen, but it might be with Kane when push comes to shove, when it goes right. Do you want to go then? He might go. Oh no, I don't. I can't leave. It's like you going. It's like me going to you, Pat, or Mitch, or Ricky, or any of your viewers and listeners. Right, you can't support Spurs anymore. Go on, we've got to go and support Man City. Go and start supporting another club. Like I know sometimes it sounds quite easy, doesn't it? Especially after the last couple of seasons.
Depends what game I'll ask you after.
But the point I'm making, isn't it, right? Because we're human. In the end, you kind of go, "Oh, no, I'm not going to do it." And that might be the same with Kane. Like, there's something obviously pulling him to Tottenham. He's been there since he was 11. He is Tottenham. The argument about the winning stuff is obviously another massive, huge show in itself. But people talk about Shearer and he did win the Premier League with Blackburn. But great respect to Alan Shearer, and he's amazing. But he did only win the Premier League once. Like people don't ever reference that. Maybe that's because he won it. But in the end, when Kane's hang up his boots and people look back at him, they're going to look back at him as the best ever striker in the world, not to have won anything. Or are they going to look back at him and say he's the best striker in the world because he won a Bundesliga in Germany? But that's not my decision or any of our decisions, is it? That's Harry's decision. And if he wants to go, he should go.
Fascinating debate. I promised at the start of this show it would not be as long as a post-match show. We've now overtaken that, but we've had 3 wonderful talkers that have joined us for this last one on Spurs. I want to say a massive thank you, Mitch. Thank you so much for coming back on. Hopefully we can get you back on throughout the season. Obviously a lot of games still to cover on last one on Spurs. I hope you be a part of it for us, Mitch. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Be an absolute pleasure to come back on. Wins or losses, I don't mind talking about Spurs any hour of the day, so it would be lovely.
Top man. Mitch, where can everybody find a lot of the hot takes you give on Tottenham these days?
Mostly on Twitter. So is just at Mitch_Fretton. Just hit 12k on Twitter. So thank you everyone for that, and hopefully keep pushing onwards and upwards. And I am spouting my usual nonsense on Live Score on a daily basis. A lot of Women's World Cup stuff as well, but the occasional Spurs article thrown in there as well.
Mitch, thank you so much. Pat, always a pleasure. I think it's fair to say, Pat, there's always something going on or stuff going on around this football club, isn't there? There's just, it's incredible. Just the never-ending content Tottenham Hotspur give us at the moment. And obviously, Pat, you're very just up at the journey with regards to pre-season at the moment. It's we are back, of course, on Wednesday, of course, for the, don't get too excited, the Lion City Sailors, everybody.
Well,
if that does go ahead, bearing in mind the weather conditions.
I'm sure it will. And yeah, Tottenham is the club that keeps on giving for positive and negative. You know, I mean, to be fair, obviously I love the club. We all love Tottenham. We feel that it should be doing better, could be doing better. I feel and hope it does do better this year. We just need to get the centre-back sorted, get rid of some deadwood. I feel that things are, even though today's show, to be fair, today's show has been a mix, positive and negative. I feel things are more positive than negative at the moment, but for goodness sake, Daniel Levy, please just get some deals done and get some good deals done. And yeah, I'd like to thank everyone in the comments. It's been wonderful seeing some of the stuff coming through. Mitch has been great. Definitely need him on more. Obviously, Absolutely. Lee is fantastic. The crazy train conductor. Love him being on with you. And Micky, obviously, you're a fantastic host and one of the best hosts I've ever worked with. So yeah,
thank you so much.
Just saying the truth. And yeah, people don't really appreciate how good Ricky is because he's obviously just running the show. But when you see him on Sky Sports News and when you hear what he's got to say, he knows his football just as well as any of us. So yeah, you're brilliant, Ricky. And
thank you, mate. Very kind. Very, very kind. It's funny. I know, Lee, we're the same. I mean, you were stopped. I don't know how many times at Westfield at the weekend for Last Word on Spurs. I mean, I've got to say, it's mental, isn't it, at the moment? Just the fever of Last Word on Spurs. I go down the street now. I don't live in a massively well-known area, but the amount of Spurs fans that come up and just automatically hug me, I think they just feel sorry for me that we're having to keep talking about Tottenham on a week-to-week basis is bad. So thank you so much for all the love out there. And I've got to say, it is a lot of love. I mean, it's unbelievable, right, Lee? Unbelievable. A lot of love out there for the show. It's incredible.
No, it absolutely is, mate. And look, I think what we're doing is great. I mean, I totally thoroughly enjoy it. I get heckled sometimes in the comments, but the reality is, it is what it is. We built this show out. You built this show out from scratch back in the day, you and Jason and everyone else that you have on it now because of opinions, right? And that's what it's all about. You want to be able to talk about opinions. Sometimes they go on long, but that's because we're having a debate. You know, you've got to do is put a pint in your hand. If that's your tipple or a gin or a glass of water or coffee, think you're down a pub and we're having a chat. That's what it's all about, you know. And Spurs keep giving the content out because of some of the mistakes, and we're not always going to please everyone, and we're not always going to, piss everyone off either. You know, and that's the whole point about it. And you know, that's why I enjoy doing it. I mean, look, I just hope that the game goes ahead on Wednesday, and we get loads of goals, and we have a really good performance, and then by the end of the week, we sign both of them centre backs as well. And it only takes if that happens, by the end of this week, all of a sudden our season we're looking at damn sight rosy, wasn't it? Beating Lion City Sailors 27-0, kept a clean sheet, signed VDV and Tapsoba. And by the way, I keep talking about free. You mentioned him earlier. I'd also try and get that Tosin in as well.
God, yeah, why not? I mean, let's get as many as we can. And before the show does end, trying to get the positives in. Right, well, listen, we are back with you on Wednesday.
Well, with a positive, just quickly then, if you're going to finish on a positive, here's one for you, right? 72 points gets you top 4 over the last 12 seasons of Premier League. 67.6, so we'll call it 68 points, gets you top 5 in the Premier League over the last 12 seasons. And 62 points gets you in the top 6 over the last 12 seasons. So if there's anybody out there that genuinely thinks, even without Kane, that we are not going to improve by at least 2 to 5 points under Ange Postecoglou, then I think you need to go and have a head wobble. I think we're right in the mix. With no European football, I think we're right in that mix.
As long as we get another centre-back in, though. If we get centre-backs in, 100%, I feel.
Not long, mate. Nothing.
If I've got to say, every time Postecoglou speaks, I feel more and more assured. And I know a lot of people feel the same like that. I just hope, again, as you said, Pat, as well, hopefully the man gets the backing that he needs. Because, look, he's in a difficult task already at the moment with regards to the players' futures. give the man what he needs. We can have a really, really strong season. I want to say a massive thank you again to Mitch, to Pat, to Lee, to over 4,000 of you that have watched us live tonight. Again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support. We've been the last one on Spurs. We're back with you on Wednesday for a reaction, of course, to hopefully a game, the Lion City Sailors. But from all of us here, please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on.